Chapter 836. At 1 o'clock in the morning, alarms suddenly sounded everywhere in the hospital. All the doctors and nurses on night shift were startled and hurriedly ran out. The patient in room V8 is missing. Everyone look for her. The patient in room V8 is missing. She has a strong intention to commit suicide. Please pay attention. Ming ran from one room to another and looked around. Finally, he grabbed a nurse and asked loudly, "Where is the monitoring room? Where is your monitoring room?" The nurse was shocked by him. She stuttered and told him the location of the surveillance room. He immediately let go of her and disappeared in a flash. However, before he went to the so-called monitoring room, Ming suddenly thought of a place. He pressed the elevator and went directly to the 13th floor. The wind was very strong. Lily was trembling all over her body. The railing on the top floor was unexpectedly high. Lily tried her best to drag several things under the railing, and then there was a little height. Stepping on it, Lily's hand curled on the highest handrail and lifted her foot up. But before she hooked on the handrail, she suddenly heard a thunderous voice coming from behind. "Lily!" Lily's heart skipped a beat, and she was scared to death. Her body softened and the whole person just fell down. The ground was rough cement. Lily fell and felt pain all over her body. She screamed and lost all her strength. Ming's heart was empty. He quickly ran over and helped her up. Noticing that she was shaking badly, he felt even more angry and scolded her. "Are you F***king sick? Lily, don't you know to wear a coat on such a cold day?" As he spoke, he took off his coat and covered her body with it. Lily felt warm and opened her eyes weakly. It was very dark and the light outside was all blocked by the railing next to her. Lily's eyes were so blurred that she couldn't see his expression at all. However, these words were clearly transmitted into her ears. With a low laugh, Lily's tears suddenly rolled down, and she helplessly let herself cry. "Ming, let me die, okay? I beg you, let me die, okay? Why do you save me? Why don't you let me die?" His weak and powerless voice was filled with humble pleading. Ming was deeply hurt by such words. Her heartbeat affected her eyes, causing them to become moist. Lily didn't notice Ming's strangeness. She lowered her head and burst into tears. She begged, "Don't meddle in other people's business. Ming, I beg you. I have nothing left. Now I don't even have the right to seek death?" "Who said you don't have anything?" Ming held her in his arms. His voice trembled. His throat was empty. He whispered, "Whatever you want, I'll give it to you." When Lily heard that, she stopped crying. Ming held her with both hands and pressed her head against his chest. "No matter what, I cannot die." Ming rubbed her short hair and said, "Live well, then there's hope for everything, isn't it? This is what you told me. Have you forgotten?" Lily could clearly feel his presence. At the same time that her vocal cords vibrated, her chest also vibrated gently. His voice was like an echo, entering her ears. Chapter 837. At that time when she said this, she was wearing a fiery red coat, with her long hair draped over her shoulders, and her little face was as proud as a peacock. Her posture was arrogant and proud. At that time she lived like a queen beside him. Bold, proud, and wild. Who didn't envy her? Who didn't like her? How good it was in those days. But why did she leave? Why did she leave? The so-called first love was just one of the excuses. Was the so-called freedom really so important? Did she really get the so-called freedom? He only knew that after leaving him, she had a bad life. Very bad. Lily, who used to be optimistic, wanted to commit suicide several times. When Lily heard this, she suddenly laughed as if she had heard a joke. Lowering her head against his chest, Lily whispered in a muffled voice, "Yes, I am hypocritical. Who can always be positive?" When the hot blood was defeated by reality again and again, even Lily couldn't get up again. In the past, she firmly believed that there was no obstacle that couldn't be overcome. People who seek death at the slightest provocation are simply unreasonable. But when it happened to her, Lily could finally understand why they didn't want to live. Sometimes it wasn't due to external factors. It was just because she couldn't stand it, that's all. Tired. Too tired. The world was so big and no one would notice that she was missing. Maybe Ming would care about it for a while and feel sorry in his heart. Lily died. What a pity. I lost such a fun toy. But, sad. There would be no. She used to think that he loved her deeply, but she was just deceiving herself. She couldn't afford to be with such a proud man. Ming was stunned. After a moment of silence, he whispered, Lily, don't let me look down on you. When did you look up to me?" Lily's crying had completely stopped and she chuckled. What's your identity and what's my identity? Don't think that people are stupid. In fact, no one is stupid. Oming didn't speak again. He stood up, pulled her up and carried her. Then he walked down the stairs. Several doctors and nurses were preparing to go to the top floor. When they saw Oming holding Yu Lily down, they were all stunned. He made way for them, pressed the elevator button and watched them go down. Yu Lily fell hard, with bruises all over her body. The nurse took off her clothes and applied medicine on her. With her upper body exposed, Yu Lily was still lying on the bed. About 10 minutes later, the nurse was sent away by Oming after emergency treatment of the wound. Just then Suqing once again brought over a hot porridge. After handing it to Oming, he consciously left. Oming personally opened the lunchbox and said firmly, "Eat something." Yu Lily lay on the bed pretending to be a corpse and did not respond at all. "If you don't eat, I'll have to feed you with my mouth." Yu Lily opened her eyes. On her pale face, it was hard to see any emotion. She sneered and said, "I haven't brushed my teeth for several days." This man had a morbid obsession with cleanliness. He would never insist on it. Indeed, after hearing this, Oming's originally calm face suddenly became a little messy. Seeing the change in his expression, Yu Lily closed her eyes in relief. However, suddenly Oming reached out to help her up, and then her lips were soft. Yu Lily suddenly opened her eyes as if she was struck by lightning. Chapter 838. Oming held her head and looked at her with his eyes open. Yu Lily opened her eyes wide and looked up at him in disbelief. However, a moment later, something warm, wet and sticky came out of his mouth and entered her mouth. So disgusting, Yu Lily almost vomited. Subconsciously frowning, Yu Lily tried to push him away. But it was useless. Oming held her face with one hand and supported her back with the other. Sensing her struggle, he immediately tightened his elbows and held her hands in place. He pressed his whole body against her and pressed her under his body. Yu Lily frowned tightly and closed her eyes as if she couldn't bear to look at it. She tried to turn her head away. Oming raised her head again and let her throat straighten, and the food soon flowed down naturally. Yu Lily unconsciously swallowed a lot of it, which made her hair stand on end. Oming finally released her, scooped another spoon, looked at her and raised his eyebrows slightly. "Continue?" Yu Lily retched and a little tears oozed out of her eyes. Seeing this, Oming scooped a spoonful for himself. While eating, he said, "You are the one who hasn't brushed your teeth for a few days. I haven't vomited yet. Why are you retching?" "Oming, you are getting more and more disgusting. You are not bad either." Oming took a bite and found it quite delicious. "You actually like such a strange way of eating. Do you want to continue?" Yu Lily stared at him. Her throat was very dry and she didn't spit anything out. Oming took a sip, put it in his mouth and was about to move toward her. Yu Lily turned her head, looked disgusted and shouted, "I will eat it myself." Hearing that, Oming put down the spoon, put his hands under her armpits and lifted her up. He overlapped two high pillows and let her lean against the headboard. Then he pushed the small table on the bed over, put the bowl in front of her and motioned her to eat. Yu Lily looked at the salty porridge, which was white and had a little color. She struggled to raise her hands. Her hands were also very sore and her fingers were holding the spoon, trembling slightly. Looking at Oming's expression, Yu Lily picked up the spoon, but she couldn't hold it steadily, and the porridge on it fell on the quilt that had just been changed. Seeing this, Oming narrowed his eyes and chuckled. He took 2 pieces of paper towel and wiped the porridge off. Then he picked up the bowl and scooped up a spoonful of porridge to place in front of her. Yu Lily glanced at him and shrank back in resistance. Oming faintly raised his eyebrows with an obvious warning. She pursed her lips, opened her mouth and ate the porridge. It was quite tasty. It was quite delicious. Yu Lily didn't feel hungry at first, but after a few bites she felt her stomach ache. So hungry, after eating half a bowl, Yu Lily didn't want to eat any more. Oming ate the rest of the porridge himself. Faced with Yu Lily's strange gaze, he calmly said, "This was supposed to be my supper." In other words, it was Yu Lily who took his supper. Yu Lily lowered her head and felt unspeakably ironic. How could he act like this so naturally? Just like before. Didn't he know that this would easily cause misunderstandings? This would make her think too much. Lowering her eyes, Yu Lily gently pushed the small table away and said, "If you're done eating, you can leave now." Chapter 839. Oming packed up his things and put away the small table. He looked at her with a faint smile and said, "I'll sleep here tonight in case you run away again." Ah. Yu Lily felt a little funny. Who do you think you are? Do you care whether I live or die? Anyway, I used to be your sugar daddy. Ming leaned forward, scaring Yu Lily and making her shrink back. Seeing her reaction, Ming smiled with satisfaction. He put his hands on both sides of her. With an indescribable evil tone, he said with a faint smile, "I'm looking forward to our next cooperation. I want to play the sugar daddy and mistress cosplay again." Raising one hand, he lifted her chin, narrowed his eyes slightly and whispered, "It's just like before. It's very exciting and fun, isn't it?" Yu Lily looked at him, gritted her teeth and raised her hand to hit him in the face. But before she raised it, it was blocked by Ming in the middle. Ming raised his eyebrows and looked at her with a smile. "You want to hit me?" Yu Lily sneered. "More than that, I want to kill you. You have to pay with your life, you. Do you think I will be afraid?" Yu Lily looked up at him fearlessly. "In my current situation, I can't wait to die. My life is worthless. If I can kill you, it will be worth it, Mr. O." Ming was speechless. She almost blurted out the name, but after saying it, Yu Lily was surprised to find that something was wrong. Seeing Ming's more and more meaningful expression, her cheeks unconsciously burned. With an evil smile in his eyes, Ming said softly, "Then you try. I will sleep here with you today. Find a chance to kill me." As he spoke, he had straightened up, and his long fingers slowly unbuttoned the coat of his suit. Yu Lily sneered, stared at him, turned over and lay down. She covered the top of her head with the quilt and closed her eyes. Ming sat on the sofa, moved the computer on the side and began to work. After noticing that Yu Lily had fallen asleep, he looked at the time. It was already past 3 in the morning. It was very late. She picked up the phone and opened WeChat, sent a few messages to Li Xiqing, and then closed the computer lying on the sofa and fell asleep. It was a silent night. The nurse came in early in the morning to check on Yu Lily. Ming was awakened by the sound of the door opening. He looked at his watch. It was already past 7 in the morning. In winter, the sky brightened very late. Picking up her phone, she saw several missed calls from Li Xiqing. She watched Yu Lily being examined by the nurse. After reminding her to keep an eye on her, she walked out. She called Li Xiqing and he quickly picked up. "Second brother." "Huh?" Li Xiqing's voice sounded casual. From time to time, he could hear the laughter of children, which made Ming secretly envious. Li Xiqing seemed to be in a good mood and asked, "Is it urgent?" "It's urgent." "All right, wait for me." With that, he hung up the phone. Yu Lily was helped into the bathroom by the nurse. She asked for a toothbrush, toothpaste, and a towel to brush her teeth and wash her face before coming out. She looked much better than she did 2 days ago. Ming looked at her short hair, which only reached her ears, and the thin yellow face hidden under the short hair. His heart ached. "You don't look like a human anymore, yet you're still so stubborn. Which son of a bitch spoiled him to this extent?" Chapter 840. Ming washed up in the bathroom of the ward. When he went out, Su Qing had already brought breakfast. 2 servings. Seeing Ming come out, Su Qing pretended not to see him. He opened the lunchbox for Yu Lily and said, "Have some porridge. It's good for your stomach." While talking, he had helped Yu Lily prepare the side dishes and porridge, and thoughtfully put the spoon on the table where Yu Lily could easily reach it. Yu Lily saw the dark circles under his eyes, which were obviously caused by hard work. She felt a little sympathetic and said sincerely, "Thank you." Su Qing smiled. When he was about to speak, he suddenly felt a chill on his back. His back was stiff. Su Qing quickly waved his hand and said, "You are too polite. Take your time. I'll go first." Turning his head, he saw Ming's obviously unhappy expression. He hurriedly said, "Master O, I'll go to the company first." "Okay." Su Qing secretly breathed a sigh of relief. But when he was almost at the door, he suddenly heard Ming's voice. He said, "Remember to have lunch." "Yes." Su Qing responded and ran away. Yu Lily saw that he couldn't wait to leave. She unconsciously bent her lips, looked down at the breakfast and raised her hand to pick up the spoon. After eating something last night and a night of rest, Yu Lily's strength had recovered a lot. Ming just glanced at her, sat on the sofa next to her and started to eat. While eating breakfast, he didn't forget to watch Yu Lily's movements. After seeing that she was really eating breakfast, he was relieved. After Yu Lily was full, she folded the food and pushed the small table aside. Then her eyes fell on the TV remote control on the edge of the sofa. The sofa was a little far from the bed, about 4 or 5 steps away. Yu Lily was bored. She stared at the remote control and looked at the needle in her hand. Yu Lily measured the length of the infusion tube and found that it couldn't support her to walk to the other side, so she propped herself up and lifted the quilt. Ming was looking at the computer. He saw her movement, looked up and asked, What do you want to do? Yu Lily ignored him and reached out to take the bag of medicine. But before she put down her hand, it was taken by Ming. Ming was a little tall. He was more than 6 feet tall, almost a head taller than her. Yu Lily only felt a strong sense of oppression, subconsciously took a step back, but felt that it was too useless, so she stiffened her neck and looked at him. What do you want to do? Ming asked again. To the toilet? His sudden gentleness made Yu Lily's heart skip a beat. Looking away, Yu Lily reached out to take the medicine bag from Ming's hand, but he pulled it back. Yu Lily looked at him, slightly raised his eyebrows and did not speak. Yu Lily looked at him. After a long while she said, I want to watch TV. Ming couldn't help but smile. He turned his head to look at the TV remote control on the side of the sofa. As he walked he said, yesterday you wanted to die and today you want to watch TV. Why are you so fickle? Ming, you Ming Lily, he said. Ching you I you ching ching I Ming you Ming. Ching, ching. Chapter 841. Yu Lily didn't receive it and the remote control fell on the bed. This made Yu Lily even more angry and she went back to bed angrily. Ming hung up the medicine bag again and returned to the sofa to sit down. Yu Lily turned on the TV and found a variety show to watch. This was an old show that had been around for more than 10 years. It specially invited some stars to come and play games together, and the ratings had always been very high. Yu Lily watched for a while but she couldn't find anything funny. Instead she was even more upset. She sneaked a glance at Ming and heard the sound of his typing on the keyboard. It could be seen that he was very busy with work. But why is he still here? Is it really just to humiliate me and prevent me from committing suicide that he stayed here for so long? He shouldn't waste so much time for things that are not worth it. Is it possible that he still likes me? Thinking of this possibility, Yu Lily's heart suddenly accelerated. But soon she felt bitter in her heart. It can't be. If he really still liked her, why would he insult her like that? In the past, he couldn't wait to hold me in the palm of his hand and give me all the best. Although she was dismissive at that time, she saw how good Ming was to her. Maybe this was the price. When she finally found out that she had fallen in love with Ming, God took back all the good things that had been given to her in order to punish her severely. The laughter from the variety show was constantly coming from the TV, but Yu Lily felt bored. She stared at the TV but there was no focus. Ming glanced at her, stood up and walked over to her. Yu Lily didn't notice that he had come to her side. The sudden dark shadow shocked her. Looking up, she found that Ming had reached out. Yu Lily shrank and subconsciously shouted, "What do you want to do?" Ming's eyes darkened, and he reached out to press the call bell not far from Yu Lily's bed. After pressing the bell, Ming turned around and returned to the sofa to sit down. Yu Lily breathed a sigh of relief and looked up at the infusion bottle above her head. She found that there was only a bottom of the liquid above, and even she didn't notice it. The nurse quickly came to help her remove the needle and then went out. The whole ward was indescribably quiet. Only the sound of the variety show on the TV could be heard. The laughter on the TV was endless, but the atmosphere in reality was somewhat dull. Ming closed the computer and glanced at her. He walked to the water dispenser and poured a glass of water. Then he went to a cart under the TV and fiddled with it. Soon he walked to Yu Lily. He handed her a glass of water and a packet of medicine. Yu Lily looked at the Western medicine, pursed her lips, took the water, and stared at the medicine. Just looking at it made her mouth bitter. Ming opened the bag and poured all the pills into her hand. He didn't say a word the whole time. Yu Lily looked at the medicine and drank a glass of water. Finally, she smacked her lips and looked painful. Ming poured her another glass of water, but he wasn't in a hurry to give it to her. Instead, he put it in the cart and walked out. When he came back, he was holding something in his hand. After bringing the water over, he opened his palm. Chapter 842. Yu Lily reached out to grab the candy but Ming took it back. Yu Lily was annoyed and looked up at him. Ming did not speak, but handed the water to her and glanced at the medicine in her hand. His meaning was self-evident. Seeing this, Yu Lily reluctantly took the water and swallowed the medicine, but she saw that Ming had already removed the wrapper of the milk candy. Shocked, Yu Lily reached out and grabbed the candy, removed the remaining wrapper and put it in her mouth. Ming unconsciously softened his eyes. After throwing away the cup, he picked up the suit next to him and went out. Soon a nurse came in and looked at Yu Lily. Ming should have left. So, he sent someone to monitor me? Pursing her lips, Yu Lily turned on the TV to watch out of boredom, but she didn't like any of the channels. Looking around, Yu Lily finally looked at Ming's notebook. Asking the nurse to bring it to her, Yu Lily put down the small dining table and turned on the computer. However, she found that there was a password. Ming's computer password. It shouldn't be the same password as before. Yu Lily frowned and entered his mobile phone number. She entered it again. It was his birthday. Ming wrong. Ming did not like to change passwords, and these had some special meaning for him. However, there were a few possible passwords that were displayed incorrectly. Could it be that he had changed his password? In the past few years, had he remembered other numbers very clearly? Yu Lily thought about it and entered the password she had used before. The computer was turned on with a light sound. Yu Lily's heart was beating wildly. Looking at the open page, she sat blankly. In the past, the password he often used recently was her birthday. He actually still used this password. What? The palpitation that should not have been ignited quickly in her heart. Yu Lily's mind became more and more chaotic, looking at the screen full of information and documents, and the email page that had not been closed yet. However, she inadvertently glanced at an email title. Capital Ren Technology Company Limited Acquisition Plan. Capital Ren. Isn't this Lida's company? How could it be? How could Ming acquire such a small company? Even Yu Lily looked down on such a company, let alone Ming. If it weren't for his high salary, Yu Lily wouldn't have stayed there. Now Ming was buying this kind of lousy company? What? Could it really be that he had too much money and was buying it for fun? Yu Lily clicked on it and found that the document had already been downloaded by Ming. When she opened it, the estimated price and operating costs were far lower than what Yu Lily knew. And it was much lower. Although Lida's company wasn't big, it shouldn't be so cheap, right? Moreover, Lida's importance to this company couldn't be underestimated. He wouldn't easily agree to sell it. Could it be that he had gone bankrupt? Yu Lily's heart was beating very fast. The more she read, the more shocked she was. Suddenly, out of the corner of her eye, she saw Ming's figure. Shocked, she quickly closed the document and pressed the sleep button. While he was walking over, she turned on the computer again and pretended to enter the password. Chapter 843. Yu Lily pretended to be calm, pressed the enter key a few times and said, "What is your password? I can't open it." Ming squinted at her for a moment, then went forward and closed the computer. He took the computer and sat on the edge of the sofa, not answering her question. The nurse saw Ming coming over, said hello at the same time and went out. At this moment, Ming had changed his clothes. He should have found a place to take a shower and change clothes, and he looked much cleaner and more refreshed. Yu Lily pretended to be disdainful, lay down, and pulled the quilt up to cover half of her face. But she did not turn her back like before, but quietly tucked the quilt, peeking out a pair of eyes. Ming seemed to notice her gaze and looked over. Yu Lily noticed it and quickly closed her eyes, pretending to sleep. Ming felt something was wrong and entered the password to open the computer. The page on the computer seemed to be different from when he just left. It was opened. Password. He looked at Yu Lily, who was pretending to sleep on the bed. What did you see? Ming slid his finger on the touchpad and asked slowly. Yu Lily felt a little guilty but still pretended to be calm. She opened her eyes and looked at him with a puzzled look. What? Ming slightly raised his eyebrows and chuckled, but his face was cold. Don't touch my things in the future. His voice was gloomy with displeasure. Ming's sullen face made Yu Lily feel even more guilty. She sneered, "Who wants it?" Although she said so, she couldn't help but feel jealous. She turned around with the quilt and closed her eyes. Yu Lily, you really think too highly of yourself. When Li Xiqing woke up, he saw a few WeChat messages on his phone. It was Ming. After calling several times and no one answered, he simply threw the phone aside and turned around to hug his wife. Su Qinxi was still in a daze. Being hugged like this, she habitually burrowed into his arms and then fell asleep again. Li Xiqing held her in his arms and unconsciously hugged her, his big hand stroking her waist. Well, she was fat again. So fat. She moaned and took his hand away. He lowered his head and whispered, "Get up, Mrs. Li, shut up." She reached out and covered his mouth, refusing to open her eyes. He turned over and pinched her nose, saying, "You're getting lazier. Oh, go away. I want to sleep." She frowned and waved him off. He chuckled and stopped teasing her. After washing up, he went outside. He took the kids out for a run, but just after running one lap, he received a call. It was Ming. When Li Jianyue saw that her father had gone to answer the phone, she immediately took the lead to slack off. She called Brother Mosen to catch worms together. After hanging up, he looked at the kids running around and was about to put his phone back when it rang again. This time it was Qingyu. It had been a while since Qingyu returned to the company to work. Perhaps because of Rong Rue, her working ability was not inferior to before, but more efficient than before. As soon as he picked up, he heard a piece of explosive news. "Boss, we found Bo Xiao." Bo Xiao. Chapter 844. In the colorful Yunnan, the sun was shining brightly. In the shabby alley, there were tan children running around, laughing and playing, and the sound of children crying could be heard. Today's weather was very good, and the sun was very bright. An old man dressed in beautiful and neat ethnic clothes moved a small stool and sat in front of the door, watching the children playing, and from time to time said a few words that could not be understood. Rong Anna was drying clothes on the roof, humming a tune. After drying all the clothes, she stood on the railing on the edge of the roof, looked at the golden sun hanging in the distance and stretched. With one hand on her slightly bulging belly, Rong Anna's body was warmed by the sun, and at the same time, her face was also full of the glory of maternal love. In the distance, there were domestic dogs barking, and the sound of electric car horns came up. The mood was quiet and peaceful. Was good. If she could live like this forever, it would be a good choice. In a beautiful small city doing a small business. With a husband and children by her side, working at sunrise and resting at sunset, however, the cruel reality had turned this simple idea into an extravagant hope. Rong Anna looked down and inadvertently saw a few men in simple casual clothes, looking at each other and carefully hiding at the end of the alley. Some of them were smoking, but their postures were tall and straight. They were all very healthy and strong. One of them was holding a mobile phone and making a phone call, and just on the other side of the box, there was another line of people standing. Rong Anna immediately had an ominous premonition. After looking around, she finally saw a car that looked like a police car about 2 alleys away. But she could only see a little bit and it was difficult to see the whole picture. Shocked, Rong Anna carried the basket to dry clothes and ran down from the top floor. Back to the small house she rented, Rong Anna pushed the door and went in. Bo Xiao was on the phone in the room and his face didn't seem to be very good. Rong Anna went in and saw his expression, but she didn't speak immediately. Bo Xiao's mood seemed to be rotten and he shouted at the phone, "Old Su, you are so boring at least." "Hello." The phone was hung up and Bo Xiao was furious and scolded, "Damn it. Xiao, what happened? Old Su's group of grandsons, didn't they say they were going to pick up our goods last time? They haven't moved for so long. I just called to ask and he said he doesn't want the goods anymore." T. When Rong Anna heard this, her face changed. "Old Su's goods couldn't be moved out last time, so we took over. How can he? Now that you see that we can't do it, you don't want to work with us anymore. When we make a comeback, we will definitely take revenge." Bo Xiao placed his hands on the table and scratched his head in frustration. "No, we can't just sit here and do nothing. Anna, let's go." Rong Anna frowned all the time. She stepped forward and said, "Xiao, there may be police outside." Bo Xiao was shocked and looked up at her. "What?" Rong Anna grabbed his hand, looked at him and said, "On both sides of the alley, there is no one blocking the back door. Now let's go from the back door." Seeing this, Bo Xiao also understood the seriousness of the matter. Chapter 845. As soon as they opened the door, they saw 3 men standing at the door. They were wearing casual clothes, but all of them looked at them coldly. Both Bo Xiao and Rong Anna's faces changed, and their hands clasped tightly together. One of the leaders took out his police ID and said, "I am Zhou Minxia of the XX Crime Squad. Now there is sufficient evidence that you are suspected of smuggling, drug trafficking, and other illegal transactions. Please come with us." Seeing this, Bo Xiao smiled elegantly and said unhurriedly, "Officer, I'm a good citizen. Did you find the wrong person?" "Bo Xiao, Rong Anna, we are arresting you. Let's go." A few people came up and surrounded them from left and right. The rest of the people searched the room. Rong Anna and Bo Xiao were both arrested and quickly escorted downstairs. Many people gathered around and recognized Rong Anna and Bo Xiao at a glance, the 2 temporary guests who were incompatible with them. Rong Anna and Bo Xiao were forced into the police car, and the 2 were sitting in the front and back. Without any precaution, they were taken to the police station. Qingyu felt a little lost all day. At lunch at home, Rong Rue noticed something was wrong with her. Giving her a piece of meat, he asked casually, "Are you thinking of me?" She glanced at him and called, "Rong Rue." "Yes." "Why did you like me in the first place?" "Because you are good-looking." Rong Rue replied without thinking, coaxing the child while eating. "Really?" "Yes." "Not because of other purposes?" Qingyu looked at him, a little emotional. Rong Rue paused and his amber eyes deepened. Looking at her, he asked, "What did he say to you?" Cheng Yu heard the words, shook her head and felt a little frustrated. "No, I found it myself. You and Rong Anna are cousins. You provided the news of Rong Anna and Bo Xiao to the police. You gave them money to let them escape and then reported their movements. Why did you do this? Isn't she your cousin?" "Yes." Rong Rui put down his chopsticks, looked at her and said, "Rong Anna is my cousin and Su Qinxi is also my cousin. Anna and Bo Xiao have made a big mistake. I gave them money to test them. The amount of cash I gave them was enough for them to escape. If they had withdrawn the money from abroad, I would have pretended that nothing had happened, but they were still in the country. The border between China and Myanmar. So you betrayed them? They or you, I can only choose one side." Rong Rui gazed at her and said, "Bo Xiao is extremely mean and very vengeful. If he is still in the country, he will definitely hurt Li Xiqing and Su Qianxi. They are very important to you, aren't they? If they had left the realm, I could have made it so that they would never be able to return, but they didn't. It's obvious that they have other plans." Rong Rui's eyes darkened. No matter what their plans are, they are doomed to fail. Instead of letting them make mistakes again and again, it is better to let them spend the rest of their lives in prison. "Did you know that Rong Anna is pregnant?" Cheng Yu couldn't bear it. "Rong Anna will give birth in prison. Why at this time?" Chapter 846. Cheng Yu was humorous and did not speak again. Rong Ponpon's little face turned red and she began to cry. She waved her little fists and kicked her legs unhappily. Rong Rui coaxed the child, stood up and sent the child to Cheng Yu, whispering, "Come on, mommy will hold you." Cheng Yu took the child over, and the little baby suddenly became well behaved. A pair of amber-colored watery eyes, which were the same as Rong Rui's, looked at her and blinked. Cheng Yu's heart was almost melted by the cuteness. She chuckled and tapped her little nose. "Li Xiqing is not at the company?" "Yes, they went to the capital." Cheng Yu held the child and lifted the little guy up. "It seems that they went to help O Ming. I don't know the specifics. Anyway, there is nothing to do in the company these 2 days, so I was lazy." "Okay." Yu Lily slept until the afternoon. Her stomach was growling, but she did not want to get up and wake up. Vaguely, she seemed to hear a familiar voice. It was a soft female voice. Yu Lily opened her eyes and looked toward the source of the sound. Just one glance was enough to wake her up. Yu Lily got up and exclaimed, "Chan Chan?" Su Qianxi heard Yu Lily's cry and turned her head to look over. With a smile on her face, she immediately saw Yu Lily's hair and said, "Did you get a haircut? Short hair is so beautiful." Yu Lily rubbed her messy short hair, combed it and looked behind Su Qianxi. Li Xiqing and O Ming were sitting on the sofa talking about something. Su Qianxi walked over to Yu Lily and said, "How do you feel? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere?" Yu Lily saw Su Qianxi and was inexplicably moved. After being ridiculed by O Ming for so long, it was the first time that Yu Lily had heard such a greeting. It was a lie to say that she was not moved. Yu Lily had never felt so close to Su Qianxi. Sniffling, her eyes were red, Yu Lily shook her head and said, "No." Su Qianxi saw her red eyes and smiled. She seemed a little helpless and said, "If not, pack up and leave the hospital. You don't feel good in the hospital. If there is no major problem, don't stay in the hospital." "I can be discharged?" Yu Lily's eyes lit up. "Of course." She went to the back and took a paper bag. "I bought you some clothes. Put them on and let's go eat together." "Yeah." Yu Lily was a little excited and took the paper bag to the bathroom. Yu Lily hadn't showered for several days. She didn't know if it was an illusion or not, but she felt that her body stank. There was a towel in the bathroom. Yu Lily wet it, wrung it out and wiped her body. After making sure there was no smell, he changed into the clothes Su Qianxi brought. Inside and out, but it was a little big. Looking at the numbers, they were all the smallest. Yu Lily tugged at her clothes, put on her coat and walked out again. As soon as they walked out, everyone's eyes fell on Yu Lily. O Ming's heart ached as he watched. In just a few days, Yu Lily had lost even more weight. Under his ear-length short hair, his face was as sharp as a palm, and the dark circles under his eyes looked a little scary. Chapter 847. Su Qianxi was wearing a light cyan cashmere coat with a beautiful lace dress inside. Her long hair fell over her shoulders, making her look gentle and delicate. With a radiant face and delicate facial features, she was really beautiful. Originally, he didn't feel it when he was wearing a loose hospital gown. Now, compared with Su Qianxi, it was like a person from two different worlds. In the past, Yu Lily was more beautiful and energetic than Su Qianxi, but now, it was the complete opposite. Ming clearly noticed the change in this. He lowered his head slightly and quickly looked away. Yu Lily did not notice the change in Ming's mood. She greeted Su Qianxi with some excitement and naturally took her arm. Su Qianxi and Yu Lily walked out first. She turned to the two men and shouted, "Remember to go through the formalities. I will go with Lily first." "Okay." Li Xiqing responded with a gentle look and said, "Be careful." "I know." Su Qianxi waved her hand and took Yu Lily out. As soon as they were out of the ward, Su Qianxi couldn't help but grab her hand and say, "You are too thin. You used to be so beautiful. Why did you torture yourself to become like this? You are so ugly that you are not a ghost." Hearing that, Yu Lily couldn't help but touch her face and asked worriedly, "Is it really ugly?" Su Qianxi looked at her, nodded seriously and said, "Yes, very ugly." Yu Lily felt a little unhappy and said, "Lend me your cosmetics." Su Qianxi smiled and said, "Let's go to the place to eat and wait for them." The two men seemed to have something to say. They should not come so soon. We can wait for them while we do our makeup. Okay. The two of them hailed a taxi and went to a famous local authentic Cantonese restaurant to sit down. Yu Lily's body had not fully recovered, so she could only try to eat light food. After the two of them ordered, they took out the cosmetics in the private room. Yu Lily went to the bathroom to wash her face and put on makeup. She asked, "Chan, why did you suddenly come to the capital? Are you accompanying your husband on a business trip?" "No." Su Qianxi looked at her with a smile on her face. "Ming asked me to come." Yu Lily paused and looked at her face. Su Qianxi did not look like she was joking at all. She said, "He said that you were not in good condition and hoped that I could come to stay with you for a while. Of course, Mr. Li would not let me come alone, so he came with me." "The situation is not too good?" Yu Lily looked away and smiled. Looking at the small mirror, the face in the mirror was so haggard that there was no spirit in it. It looked a little scary. It wasn't just not good, it was simply not good. If he hadn't stopped her, she would have died several times over. However, it just so happened that she didn't want to die because of his obstruction. As for the reason, even she herself did not know. Seeing Yu Lily's meaningful smile, Su Qianxi did not answer. Chapter 848. Yu Lily picked up the lipstick and put it on her hand. She put her fingers on her eyelids and asked, "What do you want to say?" "I also heard a little about you. Ming's feelings for you are very deep. If it wasn't something very important, he would never have come to me. You don't have to be at odds with him. Talk to him. There's nothing you can't get through." After Yu Lily finished, she let go of her hand and looked at her. She smiled and asked, "Do you think I'm making trouble?" Su Qianxi was stunned and asked, "Isn't it?" Although Ming seemed to be a bit unrestrained, he wasn't someone who would cause trouble without reason. When Yu Lily saw her expression, she took a deep breath and said, "Chan, the relationship between me and Ming ended 4 years ago. Now he hates me. He wants to retaliate against me. Do you know what I did 4 years ago?" "What?" Su Qianxi asked subconsciously. Yu Lily looked at her and couldn't help but hold her hand. She said, "I had an abortion of his child." Su Qianxi had heard a little about this. She looked at her with a firm look. "What? There must be a reason. Yu Lily, it is not the first day I met you. There must be a reason for you to abort the child, right? Tell me." Yu Lily's hand trembled unconsciously. She turned to look at her. Yu Lily's breathing suddenly became rapid, and her eyes were red. "There must be a reason for you to abort the child, right?" It was a simple question, but it aroused all the grievances hidden in the depths of Yu Lily's heart. The first person to ask this question was Su Qianxi. It turned out to be her. As for Ming, he only had an overwhelming and endless hatred for her. There was also endless humiliation and contempt for her. He had never asked her such a question. He had no doubt about the reason she had given back then. Su Qianxi clearly noticed the slight emotional changes in her. She became more and more determined in her heart. She whispered, "Tell me, Lily. What is the reason? Is there something wrong with the child?" Yu Lily's eyes were sore and tears fell all at once. With a loud cry, Yu Lily leaned forward and hugged Su Qianxi tightly in her arms. Su Qianxi was startled by Yu Lily's sudden cry. When she came back to herself, Yu Lily was sobbing. Su Qianxi gently patted her back, feeling a little distressed. She whispered, "Don't cry. I just finished my makeup. Don't cry and ruin it." Yu Lily also wanted to stop, but she hugged her with both hands, and her tears flowed uncontrollably. The despair and sadness buried in the deepest part of her heart came out at this moment, and it was unstoppable. Yu Lily couldn't bear it any longer and burst into tears. After crying for a few minutes, Yu Lily calmed down a little. She released her slightly and sobbed, Chan, that was my first child. Do you know, it was a pair of twins, but I miscarried them. Twins? Hearing this word, Su Chenxi also felt a sharp pain in her heart, and she couldn't help but feel pain. When the doctor told me that they were twins, I almost killed myself. Yu Lily almost choked from crying. She couldn't catch her breath. She took a moment to catch her breath before continuing. Ming wanted twins the most, but those two children couldn't be kept because. Chapter 849. Familiar footsteps came in, and Su Chenxi clearly noticed that Yu Lily's back was stiff. Looking up, she saw Li Xiqing and Ming walking in and looking over here. Because of what? Ming spoke with suppressed anger in his voice. It was as if he had heard something funny but was trying not to laugh out loud. He looked at Yu Lily with a pair of beautiful peach blossom eyes and raised his eyebrows slightly. What excuse did you prepare this time? Tell me? When Yu Lily heard this, the uncontrollable tears that had been rolling down her cheeks shrank. Looking at Ming's sarcastic look, Yu Lily did not speak. However, Su Chenxi was annoyed and furious. She turned her head and stared at Ming. Her eyes were red and she shouted, "You've gone too far." The simultaneous rebuke stunned the three people at the scene. Especially Ming, who heard Su Chenxi's words. After a pause, he realized that she was talking about him. If it was Yu Lily who said this, Ming would definitely not hesitate to ridicule back, but it was Su Chenxi who said it. Sister-in-law? Ming felt a little headache. Looking at Su Chenxi, he did not know what to say for a while. Su Chenxi was so distressed that her eyes were red. She stared at Ming and said, "There must be a reason for a woman to hurt her own children. A mother can't bear to hurt her own children, let alone a pair of twins." She was the mother of twins and she could understand this feeling too well. She was glad more than once that God had given her such a pair of lovely little babies. If anyone dared to hurt her children, then she was completely likely to fight with the other party. A woman was weak but a mother was strong. I don't expect you men to understand, but you can't say this kind of thing. It's too much. Losing the children itself was very painful, and she had to bear Ming's words. No wonder Yu Lily wanted to commit suicide several times. Ming was speechless. And Li Xiqing, who was behind Ming, pushed him from behind. His face was serious and with an unkind expression he said, "Yes, it's too much." Ming was a little confused. He looked back at Li Xiqing and opened his eyes wide. When did the second son he knew become such a flatterer? Where was his integrity? Where was his friendship? To hell with it all. Facing his expression, Li Xiqing was not moved at all. He ordered, "Apologize." Seeing this, Su Chenxi, who looked like she was about to cry, suddenly burst into laughter. Ming wanted to say something, but in the blink of an eye, he was pressed into a chair by Li Xiqing. Without mercy, Li Xiqing pressed his head and said again, "Apologize to my wife. I can't bear to bully my wife, but you boy made her cry as soon as you came. You've grown up. Apologize to Lily. Why are you apologizing to me?" Su Chenxi took a tissue to wipe Yu Lily's tears, but she couldn't help smiling. Yu Lily took the tissue and bowed her head in silence. How blissful. Li Xiqing seemed to really love her. This was love, right? Unconditional tolerance and unconditional pampering. And Ming was just playing with her. He said he was serious, but he was just playing seriously. The difference was huge. Chapter 850. Ming squinted at Yu Lily but did not apologize. Yu Lily also did not speak. After the dishes were served, Li Xiqing and Ming were chatting happily. After the group of people had dinner, it was almost evening. Li Xiqing and Ming found another place to continue chatting, while Su Chenxi took Yu Lily to the mall. Seeing the dazzling lineup of brands that she used to like, Yu Lily stood in the mirror store and felt as if she had returned to the past. Su Chenxi picked up the clothes one by one and compared them with Yu Lily's body. She said, "This looks good and suits you. Hey, this is not bad either. Good. Yu Lily was in front of the mirror and her eyes were shining. But in front of Su Chenxi her face was a little hot. Finally Su Chenxi gave her a pile of clothes. Yu Lily held the pile of clothes and felt her cheeks were even redder. Su Chenxi gently pushed her and said, "Go and change it. Try it on and see if it fits." Yu Lily looked around and found that the salesperson was still a little far from here. She carefully approached Su Chenxi and whispered, Chan, I don't have money. This store is so expensive." Su Chenxi heard that and was stunned. She looked at her with some surprise and asked, "Didn't Ming give you money?" Yu Lily was a little embarrassed. She shook her head and slightly looked down. It doesn't matter. You try it on first. I will buy it for you. Su Qianxi looked at the clothes in Yu Lily's arms. They are all so beautiful. It suits your temperament. No, it's better. It doesn't matter. Try it on first. Su Qianxi gently pushed her to the fitting room. Try it on and see if it looks good. Yu Lily hesitated and walked in. Finally, she took off her clothes and put on a black dress. She looked at the size. It was the smallest, but it directly fell on her body. It was too big. Yu Lily put it on and found that she had lost so much weight. She looked like a refugee. No wonder Su Qianxi looked at her with a strange expression. Lily, show me when you are done. Su Qianxi shouted outside. She quickly opened the door and walked out. Su Qianxi saw it and had an exaggerated expression on her face. She said, beautiful. It was so fake. When Yu Lily saw his expression, she couldn't help but laugh. Looking at her baggy dress in the mirror and Su Qianxi's funny expression, Yu Lily pulled the hem of her dress and asked, really? The waiter quickly came forward and said, yes, you look good in it, but your figure is a little slim. I'll get you an XS. Yes. Bring it over and let Lily try it. The shop assistant quickly brought a smaller one over. Under Su Qianxi's encouraging gaze, Yu Lily went in and changed it. Just right. The fit was unexpected. This time, Su Qianxi no longer had an exaggerated expression. She was truly amazed and praised, beautiful. When Yu Lily saw her like this, she also laughed. Then she changed several sets of clothes in a row, keeping the good-looking ones and sifting out the ugly ones. In the same store, she bought 3 sets of clothes. Chapter 851. However, Su Qianxi did not even blink and swiped the card. After Yu Lily went out, she whispered, Chan, I will return the money to you later. Don't mention it. When we were in school, you helped me a lot. It's just buying a few clothes. You don't have to be so polite with me. While talking, Su Qianxi had taken Yu Lily into a store that Yu Lily used to wear. It was very famous and expensive. As soon as Yu Lily went in, she was attracted by the red coat in the middle. So beautiful. However, as the main item of this store, the price must be very good. Su Qianxi immediately noticed that Yu Lily was looking at the coat and said to the salesperson, that coat, the smallest one, try it on. Okay, please wait a moment. The salesperson was not blind. The clothes that Su Qianxi was wearing looked simple, but each of them was very expensive. And that coat was a limited edition of a luxury brand, very expensive. Hearing this, she immediately took out the smallest one. Yu Lily had no money and no confidence. Seeing Su Qianxi waving her hand, she felt sad. When the salesperson brought the coat over, Su Qianxi turned around and pulled her to the mirror. She took off her coat and said, try it on. When Su Qianxi's voice fell, the salesperson had already put it on Yu Lily very sensibly. After putting it on, Yu Lily's whole aura was different. The red color, combined with Yu Lily's white skin that was different from ordinary people, looked extraordinarily beautiful. Although Yu Lily now looked pitifully thin, and the overall face looked a little thin and sick because of this coat, she was full of the aura of a queen. It's so beautiful, the salesperson said. You are the first customer to wear this dress so well, as if it was tailor-made for you. It's so beautiful. While talking, the salesperson had turned around and brought a pair of red shoes on the side of the window. The heels were very high, a full 10 centimeters. However, this height was what Yu Lily used to wear most often. You can try this pair of shoes. The combination must be very beautiful. You are so suitable for red. As the salesperson spoke, she squatted down to help Yu Lily take off her shoes and put them on for her. Su Qianxi looked enviously and said, so beautiful. Su Qianxi actually liked red clothes, but she could not stand the aura. Most of her clothes were bought by Li Xiqing. They were either light yellow or light green or white, pink and blue. Although they looked good on her, they didn't have Yu Lily's strong aura. Su Qianxi felt sorry and waved her hand. I'll take the shoes and coat. Chan, okay. The shop assistant was overjoyed. A pair of shoes and a coat added up to hundreds of thousands. Yu Lily's heart was bleeding. He silently counted with his fingers how many years he would have to work to pay back the money. At the same time, he was also extremely satisfied with his current clothes, and his heart was jumping with joy. It had been a long time since she had worn good clothes. Yu Lily could tell the difference just by feeling the texture. Chapter 852. After shopping, Su Qianxi did not buy any clothes, but she bought a lot of cosmetics in duplicate. The two of them found a place to sit down in the mall and ordered. Yu Lily sat in a chair looking very tired. Su Qianxi poured her a glass of lemonade and said, Lily, why did you abort the child? Did you tell Oming? The topic returned to the original point, but Lily's mood was obviously much calmer. Hearing that, she smiled slightly and shook her head gently, saying, "In order to leave him, I lied to him that he killed the child." Su Qianxi heard that and stared incredulously. Lily saw this and laughed at herself. It's incredible, isn't it? It's too cruel. Before we talk about this, I want to ask you one thing. What? Oming, are you engaged? Hearing this question, Su Qianxi frowned and said, I don't know. I have heard of it before, but I have never seen it. I don't think so. If there is, it should be introduced to my husband. If my husband knows, I will definitely know too, so I don't think so. Really? From another perspective, even if there is, even his brother does not know of the existence of this fiancé. How little sense of existence does this fiancé have? Su Qianxi shrugged and said with a smile. After Su Qianxi said so, Lily felt that it was somewhat reasonable. After a moment of silence, she said, At that time, the doctor told me that the child was likely to be deformed and advised me not to keep it. Now what? My relationship with Oming, I have been afraid, so I have been taking contraceptives, but I still got pregnant. Such a child cannot be kept, so then why didn't you tell Oming? Su Qianxi looked at her incredulously. Does Oming not want this child? I didn't tell him. Lily twitched her mouth and smiled gently. If I told him, I wouldn't be able to leave, would I? How could you be so pretentious, right? Lily laughed at herself. I also think I am pretentious, but I really want to live on my own. Qianqian, I envy you so much. Do you know that? Envy me? She was dazed. Well, I envy your good luck, envy that you have a husband who loves you, envy your talent, your ability, your conduct, your popularity, your character, your mentality. A lot, I envy them all. Lily looked at her with tears in her eyes and whispered, If I were you, it would be great. Lily looked at her with tears in her eyes and whispered, If only I were you. Su Qianxi listened to her words and looked at her strangely. Lily, are you serious? Oh my God. Su Qianxi felt that the world was going crazy. Lily, do you know how much I envy you? I'm very timid, and I'm not eloquent and cowardly. When I was bullied in the past, it was always you and Ihan who helped me bully them. I remember it all. Lily thought she was comforting her, so she drank a glass of water and didn't speak. Chapter 853. Su Qianxi looked at her and was not joking at all. You know what I was like in high school, right? In the past, you liked to dye your hair. If you dyed it red, I dyed it red. If you dyed it yellow, I dyed it yellow. There was one time when you dyed it green and I also dyed it green. Do you still remember? Lily thought of the past, chuckled, nodded and said, At that time I just dyed it with a hair dye stick. When the school checked, I washed it all off. Who knew that you still had colorful hair? In the end, I was caught by the class supervisor and was ordered to dye it all back. Lily thought of the past, chuckled, nodded and said, At that time I only used a hair dye stick. Speaking of the past, Lily laughed. How can you be so stupid? How can a normal person dye their hair permanently and change their color every day? Haha. Su Qianxi puffed up her cheeks and said with some annoyance, You're still talking about it? You made me so miserable at that time. I really went to dye my hair. After I dyed it black, all my hair was ruined. It fell off in bunches and broke. It was so ugly. Haha. However, I really like you and I envy you. Because many people like you, I learned from you. You were arrogant, but you were popular. I learned from you, but I was hated by many. I can't bear to look back on the past. At that time, some people secretly laughed at Su Qianxi behind her back, saying that she was imitating others. You are so stupid. Lily's smile became bigger and bigger and her eyes curved. Su Qianxi also laughed. You are so beautiful and so likable. Why do you envy me? I envy you very much, Lily. Not only me, but many people also like you and envy you, such as Lu Anan and Lin Wanting. They used to be against you, but every time they were defeated by you. Many people in the class applauded you, saying that you were doing justice for the world. I could not do such things. Lily, why do you envy me? Looking at Su Qianxi's expression, Lily was a bit dazed. Was that so? It turned out that while she was envious of Qianqian, Qianqian was also envious of her. The gloomy mood in his heart immediately relaxed, and he was suddenly enlightened. Lily looked at the beautiful woman in front of her, smiled sincerely and said gratefully, Thank you, Qianqian. Hearing this, Su Qianxi also looked at her and chuckled. Let's eat. After dinner, Su Qianxi took Lily back to the hotel. Su Qianxi and Li Xiqing booked a suite on the top floor. In this 5-star hotel, There were only 2 suites on the top floor, one on the south and one on the north. Su Qianxi and Yu Lili were carrying a lot of things, but Yu Lili was so tired that 2/3 of them were in Su Qianxi's hands. She swiped the card and went to the top floor. Su Qianxi took Yu Lili to the suite on the south side. Just when Yu Lili thought she would take the card, Su Qianxi directly rang the doorbell. After 2 rings, light footsteps could be heard from inside. Yu Lili had a bad feeling in her heart, so she took a step back. The door was opened and Ming's figure suddenly appeared. Ming looked a little tired. His light blue collar was loose and he stood tall by the door, looking indescribably lazy. However, such an image had a fatal attraction for women. His almond-shaped eyes moved and fell on Yu Lili. Chapter 854. Before Su Qianxi could say anything, Ming said, "Where do you want second brother to sleep?" Yu Lili heard that and looked at Ming. Then she grabbed Su Qianxi's sleeve for help and said, "Qian." If she stayed in the same room with Ming, she couldn't imagine what kind of humiliation Ming would give her. She couldn't stand it. She really couldn't stand it. If it happened a few more times, Yu Lili was afraid that she couldn't help but die again. Instead of being unable to lift her head and stand up in front of him, it was really better to die. Seeing this, Su Qianxi was a little embarrassed and looked at Ming. She saw Ming's eyes slightly narrowed, and an unspeakable sense of danger filled the air. Su Qianxi was even more embarrassed. She pulled Yu Lili's hand and said, "Lili, you'd better stay in the same room with Ming. I'm afraid that Li Xiqing will not agree." More importantly, she was afraid that Ming would not agree. Moreover, if she wanted to make them reconcile, she could only let them stay in the same room. This was undoubtedly the fastest way to achieve the desired effect. Just like she and Li Xiqing, they quarreled at the head of the bed, but they made up at the end. Su Qianxi gently pulled her hand away, then gently pushed Yu Lili and said, "Go in." At the same time, Ming had already taken her hand and said, "They are living together. What's the matter with you?" Yu Lili's heart stopped and she immediately breathed quickly. She frowned and said angrily, "You know what I mean." Ming glanced at her coldly. His thin red lips curled up into an indescribable evil. He asked, "Then what do you mean?" Yu Lili was even more annoyed and sneered, "Don't you know what I mean?" Seeing these 2 people quarreling again, Su Qianxi coughed and said, "Ming, didn't you promise me?" "I know." Ming interrupted her and pulled Yu Lili in. He quickly drove Su Qianxi away and said, "Li Xiqing is waiting for you. Go quickly." "Then I'll go first. Have a good talk." Su Qianxi put down the things and handed them to Ming. "Here Lili's things." Ming only glanced at it before turning to look at Yu Lili with a faint smile. Being stared at by him, Yu Lili's face immediately became hot. It was as if he had seen through her. It was as if he had seen through her. She turned to look at Su Qianxi and shouted, Qian, how about you lend me a few hundred yuan? I will take a taxi back. I have rented a house in the capital. I will go back now. I just remembered that I still have a lot of things to solve at home." Su Qianxi's eyes were hot. Ming slightly tightened his grip on her wrist. He sneered with some displeasure and said, "The shabby house that you used to commit suicide?" Yu Lili paused and turned to look at Ming. She saw Ming's pair of peach blossom eyes with an unknown smile, looked at her and said, "The landlord has already driven you out. The deposit and advance payment that you originally paid have all been returned to me. They have been taken by me." Yu Lili was annoyed and blurted out, "What right do you have?" Chapter 855. Su Qianxi was locked outside and suddenly felt a little flustered. Did she do something wrong? It seemed that the relationship between Ming and Yu Lili was not as simple as she had imagined. Ming wouldn't hit someone, right? Su Qianxi felt a little distressed. She leaned against the door and listened but heard nothing. After a long while, she stood up and carried her things to the suite in the north. She took out the room card and with a beep, the door opened. Su Qianxi threw all the things she had bought on the sofa in the suite and sat on the side. Her legs were a little sore. Just then, Li Xiqing had just taken a shower. He opened the bathroom door and came out with only a bath towel on him. Seeing her coming back, he dried his hair and asked, "Where did you go?" "Shopping, buying clothes, eating." Su Qianxi sat on the sofa, a little sad and said, "Honey, I'm thinking if I did something wrong. I let Lili stay in the same room with Ming, but it seems that she really doesn't want to be with Ming. Will Ming hit her? What should I do?" Li Xiqing heard that and couldn't help laughing. He came up and gently pinched her cheek, saying, "How is that possible?" Ming has been educated as a Western gentleman since he was a child. He never hits women. Will he scold women? Su Qianxi looked at him, feeling a little nervous. Li Xiqing heard that and was silent for a moment. It was hard to say. Ming's mouth was so dirty, but seeing his wife's worried look he still said, no. Hearing that, Su Qianxi breathed a sigh of relief and nodded. That's good. Let Ming reform her. But it seems that Ming really doesn't like Lily anymore. Are you sure this will work? I don't know. Lily is a woman with a big heart. She wants a lot of things. Li Xiqing threw the towel aside and said, Ming actually likes her very much. Don't think too much. What big heart? Lily is a very easy person to be satisfied. Su Qianxi was a little unhappy. Li Xiqing heard that and smiled without saying anything. Seeing his expression, Su Qianxi felt a bit depressed. What's with that expression? If she was so easily satisfied, she wouldn't have left in the first place. This woman is far more complicated than you think. Of course not. I know her very well. You don't understand, Mrs. Li. She is not as innocent as you think. He pulled her up. I don't think she deserves Ming. Hearing this, Su Qianxi was even more annoyed. She shook off his hand and said, it's obvious that Ming doesn't deserve Lily. Lily is such a good girl, but Ming doesn't know how to cherish her. Do you know how many people liked Lily back then? You don't even know Lily. How can you say that? Li Xiqing felt a little helpless and said, let's not dwell on this issue. Go take a shower. She glared at him, stomped her foot and waved her hand. Don't go to my bed tonight. Li Xiqing looked innocent and did not know whether to laugh or cry. Did I do something wrong? She had already turned around and walked directly into the bathroom, ignoring him. Lily resisted and tried to take her hand back, but Ming held it tightly. Chapter 856. He forcibly dragged Lily into the room, then locked the door and pushed her in. Ming, what do you want? Lily was extremely angry. What's the matter with the house? Don't you understand? You almost committed suicide in that place. The landlord was very angry and drove you out. Ming slowly reached out and unbuttoned his shirt. His movements were slow and elegant. Lily was even more annoyed and said angrily, it must be your trick, right? The landlord likes me very much. How could he drive me out? Ha. Ming glanced at her from the corner of his eye. There was contempt in his sneer. You're too naive, little you. You almost killed someone there. If word of this gets out, how are you going to rent out the house? Do you really think that everyone can like you forever? Do you really think that everyone can like you forever? That last sentence made Lily's heart skip a beat. Looking at him, Lily turned around and was about to open the door. Ming looked at her and said in a lazy tone with a faint smile, what do you want to do? Lily ignored him and trotted toward the door. Ming said in a cold tone, your good friend asked me to talk to you. Do you want to let her down? Lily stopped opening the door and looked back at him. After a long time she asked, what do you want to talk about? I don't know. Ming shrugged and walked over slowly. His leather shoes landed on the thick carpet without making a sound. But don't you have a lot of things to say to me? He asked. As he spoke, his footsteps had come over, and the distance between them had been quietly shortened. For example, what you just wanted to say to Su Qianxi, but when you saw me coming over, you took it back. The footsteps had reached the door, and the distance between them was only 2 steps. Ming stopped, put his big hands in the straight and neat trousers pocket, and slanted his lips. The curve was not big, but it was evil and charming. Lily's heart skipped a beat, and she looked at him incredulously. Really? Will he really believe that there is another reason? Will he really believe that? I didn't mean it? This result was far beyond Lily's expectation. Lily's eyes were wet and she almost cried out. Excitement and elation instantly condensed in his chest and overflowed with words. Looking at him, Lily was about to speak, but the next second Ming said, I am very interested to know what kind of lie you almost made up today. The words on the tip of Lily's tongue were crushed and swallowed back. Just like the 2 children back then, they died in the womb. The excitement and joy he felt just now had turned into a joke at this moment. Lily looked away and didn't want to say anything more. She turned around and unlocked the door. Ming's eyes darkened. He reached out and grabbed her arm. Then he turned her around and pressed her against the door. The wooden door immediately made a dull sound. Lily stared at him, gasping for breath. Chapter 857. Lily felt a burst of anger and sneered, when it comes to lying, who can be better than you? Mr. Oming, I can't compare to your ability to make lies. Is that so? Oming pressed harder against her, and the smile on his face widened. So, you can tell which of my words is true and which is false? However, even though he had a smile on his face, his eyes were ice cold. It seemed that the next moment he could crush her on the spot. Yu Lily fearlessly looked at him with a sneer on her lips and slowly said, "Of course, don't underestimate the degree of my understanding of you." This time even Oming's eyes narrowed. He looked at her deeply like a rippling lake with layers of white moonlight so deep, so thick. "Then let's do a test, how about it?" Oming pressed against her, chuckling and touching the tip of her nose. Their breaths were intertwined, and it was impossible to distinguish each other. Yu Lily stared into his eyes, and the moment her sight fell into his deep eyes, it seemed that the whole soul of the person was attracted to him. She had no power to fight back. What? Yu Lily even stuttered. Oming looked at her, just chuckling, but it was indescribably evil. "Yu Lily," Oming raised his other hand, pinched her chin, squinted his eyes and said in a low voice, "I still love you. I still love you." These words made Yu Lily's pupils shrink, and her heart beat uncontrollably. It was so fast as if a small motor was installed, and even her body was shaking with it. Oming's hand was placed across her chest, and he could clearly sense the subtle changes in her. His eyes slightly narrowed, Oming slightly leaned his face forward and kissed her lips. Yu Lily's heart beat faster and she couldn't believe it. Looking at the face in front of her that was getting bigger and bigger, she was stunned for a moment and didn't know what to do. Oming closed his eyes and forced his way in. He skillfully pried open her pearly white teeth and quietly penetrated her. His movements were gentle, but Yu Lily's heart almost jumped out of her chest. She flew to the past, to the time when he still loved her. "I still love you." Is that true? Unknowingly, a layer of water vapor had condensed in her eyes. When she blinked, the water droplets hidden in it suddenly fell down. His breathing became shorter and shorter. With a throbbing heart, she lowered her eyes to look at him. Oming tasted the salty tears. He opened his eyes and looked into her confused eyes. "Oming?" Yu Lily looked at him. The smile on Oming's face widened and he whispered in her ear, "Didn't you say that you understand me? So, are my words true or false?" In Yu Lily's heart there was a voice screaming crazily, "Really, really, really?" However, rationality pulled her back to reality. How could that be? Didn't Oming hate her so much? However, the pair of eyes in front of her were smiling and gentle, so real. The voice in her heart was about to come out, but it was like a fishbone stuck in her throat. If she said something wrong, would he say that she was overthinking, and then she would be more humiliated? Yu Lily looked at him and whispered, "Liar." Chapter 858. Oming lowered his eyes and chuckled. With appreciation in his eyes he said, "Smart girl." Yu Lily's eyelashes fluttered. She looked up at him with a smile and asked in a low voice, "Is it interesting? Oming, you don't want to let me go. Isn't it because you want to retaliate against me? Why don't you let me die of anger?" Oming heard the words, gently lowered his forehead and put it on her forehead. He said slowly, "Why should I let you go so easily?" His voice was gentle and pleasant. But it was with great sin. Yu Lily could clearly feel the resentment in it. "So cruel, you know." Oming's big hand gently moved down and whispered, "Your body is very attractive." His big hand wrapped around her waist and pulled her into his arms. Then he lifted her up. Yu Lily was shocked. She struggled out of habit, but soon stopped moving and closed her eyes in resignation. With a low exclamation, Yu Lily was already lying on the bed. Oming habitually put his knee on her lower abdomen, but soon he thought of the matter of that year. Because of this action, which had become a habit, the two children turned into a puddle of blood. Oming's heart was slightly tingling, and he quickly moved his knee away and fell between her legs. A pair of beautiful peach blossom eyes looked at her and said with a faint smile, "These things you bought are not cheap. Even if Su Chinsi gave them to you, you wouldn't accept them, would you?" Yu Lily listened and stared at him. Her red lips were slightly raised with sarcasm. "Look how well he knows me." "So what?" "To save you." Oming's long fingers gently lifted her chin. "It doesn't matter who you sell it to. Sell it to me in the future." Then he lowered his head and kissed her lips hard. "The price I give is higher than anyone else." He had sacrificed his entire heart for this. Maybe it would be impossible to get it back in this life. Who would give a higher price than him? "Ha ha." Yu Lily sneered and looked up at him. Oming's eyes deepened and he smiled evilly. He bent over and buried his face in her neck. Hot and passionate kisses fell on her body. Yulily's eyes trembled slightly. She felt the impulse of the man in front of her, and her heart was full of sadness. Gently closing her eyes, Yulily passively endured his roughness. The passionate kiss went deeper and deeper, teasing each other's senses. It had been a long time since he had touched her like this. For Oh Ming, it was undoubtedly a familiar stimulation. His body had already reacted. He panted and peeled off her clothes layer by layer. Unexpectedly, when he removed the last layer of her clothes, he suddenly realized that there was an even breathing sound coming from above his head. Oh Ming paused and looked up. Yulily's eyes were closed. From Oh Ming's angle he could clearly see her long eyelashes. Yulily's breathing was steady and her chest rose and fell. Just looking at it, it was a very fascinating picture. However, it made Oh Ming laugh angrily. This woman actually fell asleep? How big of a heart did she have? He pinched her chest twice as a punishment, but Yulily just waved her hand and frowned. Then she tilted her head and continued to sleep. Chapter 859. After a low curse, Yulily still did not respond at all. Oh Ming was speechless. In the end he turned and went into the bathroom. The bathroom door was gently closed and Oh Ming also turned off the lights in the room. In a place where Oh Ming couldn't see, Yulily opened her eyes and looked at the darkness above her head. Tears quietly fell from the corner of her eyes. However, her heartbeat was fast. That sentence was true. Just as he knew her, she knew him. After Oh Ming took a shower and dried his hair, it was very late. He tiptoed back to the bedroom and unconsciously climbed onto the bed. There wasn't much self-consciousness involved in all of this, and everything was done naturally and smoothly. But after going to bed he suddenly woke up. Damn, why am I so careful? For some reason Oh Ming was depressed. After lying down he pulled out the quilt that was under Yulily's body. Yulily moaned and turned over. Her even breathing could be heard. Oh Ming held his forehead and covered her with the quilt. Then he lay down and closed his eyes. However, his mind was full of thoughts and Oh Ming couldn't calm down at all. Turning around, he reached out and gently hooked the little woman who had fallen asleep. Oh Ming's heart finally calmed down a little. But what he didn't expect was that Yulily took the opportunity to lean in his direction. Oh Ming's body was stiff. At the same time as he was stunned, Yulily had leaned over and gently rubbed against him to adjust a comfortable position. Then there was a steady breathing sound. This was the habitual movement she used to have. She was like a kitten with sharp teeth and claws, snuggling comfortably in a warm nest after falling asleep. Oh Ming's heart beat fast, his body was stiff and he didn't move. This woman really surprised me all the time. But am I special? Was this unconscious movement in her sleep something that only happened to him? Or does she do this to every man? Thinking of this, Oh Ming's heart was more like being scratched by a cat, itching unbearably. Oh Ming was not sleepy at all. He held the woman in his arms, and his thoughts had completely flown away. The night was silent. When Yulily woke up, there was no one beside her. The seat beside him was empty and cold. Yulily sat up. She was only wearing a thin shirt. Looking at the position beside her, she was slightly stunned. She clearly remembered that Oh Ming slept here. Could it be that she remembered wrongly? Last night he seemed to have hugged her. Just like before, he hugged her to sleep. Just like before, she leaned toward him. It was a comfortable habit. But where was he now? Oh Ming had a habit of lazing in bed. Usually when there was nothing to do, he wouldn't get up very early. He looked at the time. It was 8 in the morning. The landlady's daughter, Xiao Shui, looked at the tall and straight figure standing in room 403. She couldn't move her eyes away at all. His eyes lit up as he watched Oh Yangming walk around and pack his things. He approached him and asked, "Mr. Oh, is Lil, you really not going to stay here anymore? Did she say she wanted to move? What a pity. If he lived here, this man might come here often." Although he was already taken, it was still worth it to be able to see such a man every day. Oh Ming nodded gently and said, "We're going back to Kingstown. We've troubled you during this time." Chapter 860. I see. Snowy was disappointed, but she quickly put on a smile and said, "Then I will ask my mother to settle the account for you. There's no need for that." Oh Ming picked up the notebook that had been on the table for a long time. There was a clear outline of a face on it. Oh Ming's eyes darkened slightly. Looking at the lines, he said, "You should have signed a contract with you. The rest is the deposit, right? Since it was a breach of contract, you should keep all of it." While speaking, his eyes did not move away from the notebook. The strong and clear outline on the notebook with only a few strokes was very vivid. It was Ming. At the bottom, there were two small and cute babies with big round eyes, lying in the swaddling clothes. Looking through it, there were a lot of random drawings in the notebook. Some were intentional and some were scribbled. At the same time, there were also a lot of words. Life is worse than death. I can't stand it anymore. The black ink had solidified. Ming looked at the words and his eyebrows were full of complex feelings. So, after writing this, she committed suicide? Noticing Snowy's gaze, Ming closed the notebook and put it in a small box. He said, I can clean it up myself. Thank you. Snowy blushed, nodded, and said, Okay, then when you need me you can find me. I am next door. Okay, thank you. Ming smiled politely and soon Snowy went out. After Snowy left, Ming picked up his phone and called Su Qianxi. Su Qianxi had just finished washing and picked up the phone when she saw the phone ringing. Hello. Sister-in-law, this is Ming. I know what's wrong. I'm outside right now. Go check on Lily and take her to eat breakfast. Well, okay. Su Qianxi responded and had put on her shoes. After a pause, she suddenly thought of the conversation with Lily yesterday and called, Ming. Yes. Do you know why she aborted the child? Ming heard the words, was silent for a moment and then said, Because it was my child. Because it was his child, so she did not want to keep it. Simple, rude, and hurtful reason. Su Qianxi heard that and chuckled. Li Xiqing walked out of the bathroom and heard her laughter. He looked over curiously and asked, Who are you talking to? Ming, Su Qianxi said to Li Xiqing. Then she smiled at Ming and said, Did Lily tell you that? Ming felt that her smile was a little ambiguous, so he nodded and asked, What did she say to you? Hey, when are you coming back? I think it's better for you to say some things to Lily face to face, but you can't reject Lily based on your own understanding. Lily looks strong on the surface, but she's very sensitive. It must be because you're not good enough to her, so she's hiding it from you. If you don't ask, she'll definitely tell you. Chapter 861. Su Qianxi had never seen how bad Ming's mouth could be. However, what Ming said yesterday was enough to make her angry. In addition to Li Xiqing's words, Su Qianxi had already silently labeled Ming as a bad mouth. Li Xiqing heard Su Qianxi's words and felt a little funny. Ming's mouth was not bad, it was mean. Su Qianxi quickly hung up the phone. Seeing that Li Xiqing was still in his nightgown, she said, I will go see Lily first. You can come to the dining room later. Okay. Li Xiqing rubbed her hair, bowed his head and said, Kiss me. Su Qianxi looked disdainful, turned her head away and ignored him. She picked up her bag and left. In front of Lily Sweet, Su Qianxi rang the doorbell. After a few seconds, Lily opened the door. Her short hair was half wet and she was wearing a bathrobe. When Su Qianxi saw her, she smiled and said, Ming asked me to take you to breakfast. Let's go. Lily blinked and felt a little surprised. She asked, Ming asked you to come? Yes, Su Qianxi said as she got in. She looked around and said, How did you sleep last night? Is the room good? Well. Lily closed the door and said casually, It's okay. I booked the room. Su Qianxi said with a proud look and whispered, How about last night? Did you say anything to him? What can I say? Lily chuckled and looked down. What are you thinking about? She didn't say anything to him, but Ming did say something to her. Some words that made her feel very hurt. Su Qianxi smiled ambiguously, raised her eyebrows at her and said, Didn't you? Lily saw her expression and reached out to push her face. She laughed and said, Go away. I just got out of the hospital. What are you thinking about? Oh. Su Qianxi looked like she understood. I see. Lily saw the regret on her face and was speechless. She rolled her eyes and said, Where did you learn that expression? You're so mean. Su Qianxi laughed and once again raised an eyebrow. You learned it from the children's uncle Luo Zhan. It's really cheap, isn't it? At the same time, Luo Zhan, who was far away in Kingstown, sneezed. The soybean milk and fried dough sticks in his mouth all sprayed out. On the other side, Luo Ran closed his eyes and gritted his teeth. The blue veins on his forehead bulged as he gnashed his teeth and roared, Bastard! Luo Zhan shivered and immediately jumped back. He waved his hand and shouted, I didn't mean it. Someone must be scolding me, it's impossible to guard against it. Luo Ran held the cup in front of him and was about to throw it over. Luo Zhan immediately covered his face with his hands, closed his eyes and shouted, Big brother, you're a handsome man and don't hold grudges against me. Luo Ran put down the cup and looked at the breakfast that had been ruined by Luo Zhan in front of him. He pushed it away and said angrily, "Clean it up. I'm leaving." "Where to? A date?" After that, Luo Ran picked up a coat and opened the door to go out. Luo Zhan was disdainful. Seeing the mess, he couldn't bear to look at it and looked away. Chapter 862. He sighed in his heart, but soon accepted his fate and slowly cleaned up. Before he could finish packing, his phone rang. The name was Ruala. Ruala met Louis Han at a party organized by his colleagues last time. She had a great admiration for IT men who worked in the computer industry. Especially for Luo Zhan, the famous Z, there was a kind of fanaticism that was almost like a brainless fan. From the day they met, she started a crazy pursuit of Luo Zhan. It was said that it was easy for a woman to pursue a man. Luo Zhan did not have much feelings for this girl, but he had been single for so many years. He was not in a hurry, but his family had been anxious. One by one they urged him to find a girlfriend or a wife. Coincidentally, there was such a girl, so Luo Zhan reluctantly followed her. In a popular saying, it was above friendship, the kind of boyfriend and girlfriend who had not confirmed their relationship. Picking up the phone, Luo Zhan said while cleaning up, "Hello." Ruala was a typical southern girl, speaking softly. Hearing Luo Zhan's words, she asked softly, "What are you doing?" "Cleaning the table. I just had breakfast." When Ruala heard this, she exclaimed in surprise and said, "You actually know how to cook. That's amazing." "No, my brother bought it." Ruala's voice paused and soon she laughed and said, "It's also amazing to clean up. By the way, today is Saturday. Do you have any plans?" "No." For Luo Zhan, he could only eat, sleep, play games and work. There was nothing else to do. "Shall we go to the movies?" Ruala's voice was shy and excited. She asked carefully for fear of being refused. Luo Zhan clearly noticed her nervousness. He looked at the time and said, "It's too early to watch a movie. Why don't we go to the amusement park?" "Okay." Ruala blurted out with excitement, but soon her voice lowered and she said, "Don't you like to go to that kind of occasion?" "I don't like it very much," Luo Zhan said honestly. "But don't you girls like it very much? It's a rare weekend. Let's go together." Ruala felt like her heart was covered with honey. She nodded and said, "Well then, see you later." "All right." Luo Zhan hung up the phone. When he was about to take the dishes to the sink, he suddenly slipped and fell backward. Ping ping ping, Langa clear and solemn voice sounded sorrowfully. Luo Zhan fell on his back and grimaced in pain. He got up and looked around. There was actually a small puddle of white soy milk at the place he had just stepped on. Damn, Luo Ran is too much. It hurts. Looking at his elbow and body, Luo Zhan stood up to check. He took a deep breath and patted himself with grief and indignation. When he saw the debris on the ground, he suddenly felt terrible. When she lived with Louis Han, why didn't she have so much trouble? Sigh. After cleaning up, Luo Zhan lazily dragged his tired body into the room to change his clothes. Louis Han was playing golf with a client today. They arrived at the resort club early in the morning. As soon as they got out of the car, they saw a high-profile Maserati parked at the entrance of the club. This car model looks familiar. Glancing at the license plate number, he suddenly felt more familiar. A man wearing a knight's leather coat came out of the Maserati. He looked like a real person. Then he walked to the passenger seat and a hot beauty got out. Chapter 863. As if feeling Louis Han's gaze, Luo Zhan quickly turned his head and looked at him. Louis Han raised his eyebrows slightly and looked at the girl next to him teasingly. Luo Zhan smiled slightly, looking quite pretentious, but as if he didn't know Louis Han, he quickly turned his head to look at the girl next to him, took her hand and entered the club together. Louis Han looked at him pretending to be stupid and inexplicably felt suffocated. He laughed angrily but quickly threw the key to the doorman, turned around and walked in. The client arrived quickly. Louis Han ate with the client first before going to the golf course. However, coincidentally, when he was playing golf, Louis Han saw Luo Zhan again. Luo Zhan was standing behind the beauty, his arms around the beauty's body, and his hands were holding the beauty's hands. He didn't seem to be impatient with anything before. His eyes were gentle and he was patiently teaching her how to play. He looked very skilled. But when did Luo Zhan start to play golf? Lu. The client called him a few times, and Louis Han suddenly came back to his senses. He smiled and turned back to play with the client again, but he was not as focused as before. His eyes looked in the direction of Luo Zhan from time to time, and he seemed a little absent-minded. About half an hour later, the client was called away by a phone call. After Louis Han sent the client away, he was originally ready to take the car and leave, but when the doorman asked for the car, he stopped and walked back in. Luo Zhan and the girl were still in the golf course, but the actions of the beauty seemed to be much more skilled than before. Undoubtedly, Luo Zhan was a good teacher. But when did Luo Zhan learn it? Looking at the skills, he didn't look like a novice at all. Just when Louis Han was about to go up and say hello, Luo Zhan suddenly hugged the girl, looking ambiguous and very close. It seemed that there was a chance. What happened to being a single dog? What happened to not flirting with girls? He didn't look like a novice at all. Louis Han suddenly felt a feeling of being cheated, and inexplicably uncomfortable, suddenly filled his heart. Looking at it, Louis Han finally didn't go up, but turned and walked out of the club again. Luo Zhan accompanied Ruola to watch a movie. The movie was chosen by Ruola. It was a romantic literary film that was very popular recently. But after watching for a while, Luo Zhan felt bored. Sitting in the seat drowsily, Ruola next to him quickly noticed, gently pushed him, and Luo Zhan immediately woke up. However, to Ruola's surprise, Luo Zhan's first sentence was, "I want to eat fish with pickled cabbage and chili today." But after saying it out loud, he suddenly realized that something was wrong with the surrounding atmosphere. Ruola blushed and nodded. Okay. On the big screen in the cinema, the couple was hugging each other and crying their hearts out. Low sobbing sounds could be heard from the surroundings. Yora, who was in front of him, also had tears in her eyes and she looked very pitiful. However, Luo Zhan suddenly had a feeling of displeasure in his heart. Baffled, she was filled with shame and anger. Chapter 864. Luo Zhan stopped and stood in the same place. Ruo Zhan tried to pull him but failed. She turned back to look at Luo Zhan and asked, "What's wrong?" Luo Zhan shook his head gently and said, "No, I just suddenly remembered that there's something that hasn't been solved yet. Why don't you ask your best friend to have a meal together? Or you can go back first. I need to go back to the company to take care of something." Ruola felt a little disappointed when he heard that. But seeing Luo Zhan's expression, she nodded and said, "Well then don't work too late. Remember to sleep early at night." Okay. Ruola looked at him with some reluctance. With a light step, she came in front of Luo Zhan. Luo Zhan was a little surprised and looked at her in surprise. Ruola's hands gently leaned on his shoulders, and the soft touch made Luo Zhan feel a little strange and magical. Ruola blushed slightly, stood on her tiptoes and kissed him gently on the lips. Luo Zhan was stunned in place, but Ruola didn't dare to look back and just walked away. Looking at Ruola's sprinting back, guilt and self-blame surged like a tide. Ruola was a good girl, but he didn't deserve her. He stood on the street in a daze. After a long while, he picked up his phone and called Louis Han. Louis Han was driving. He glanced at the car phone, saw the name displayed and picked up the phone. "Hello. Louis Han, are you free?" "What?" "Tell me if you're free first. Tell me what you want first. Let's eat together." Luo Zhan's voice sounded a little helpless. Hearing this, Louis Han seemed to have guessed something. There was an 80% chance that he wanted to introduce his girlfriend to him. However, Louis Han still pretended to know nothing and said, "Oh, okay, then let's have dinner together." "Where are we going?" Luo Zhan thought for a moment and said, "Let's go to your house. I want to eat your fish with pickled cabbage and chili." "Damn, you can't do this, Luo Zhan. You still want to exploit me?" Louis Han laughed angrily. "Do you want to present me with borrowed flowers?" Luo Zhan was silent for a moment. "Is this how you offer Buddha with borrowed flowers?" That didn't seem to be the case. However, he had never been good at understanding idioms. Louis Han was much better than him. It shouldn't be wrong, right? Luo Zhan thought about it, pretended that he knew everything and said, "Sort of. Will you do it or not?" "Alright, I'll congratulate you. I'll go buy some groceries first. Wait for me." After that, Louis Han hung up the phone. Luo Zhan was a little confused. Congratulate him for what? Luo Zhan's car had been driven away by Luo Ran, so he basically had to take a taxi today. It was a bit far from Louis Han's place, so it took 40 minutes to get there. Louis Han had already bought all the ingredients. Luo Zhan entered the password skillfully, and Louis Han was busy in the kitchen. Clean and tidy. Louis Han's home did not look like a woman's home at all. Luo Zhan lay directly on Louis Han's sofa and slightly narrowed his eyes. Unknowingly, he had fallen asleep. In the dream, Ruala tearfully accused him of being heartless and playing with her. At the same time, the scolding and disappointment of his parents and Luo Ran filled his ears. Chapter 865. Then Luihan reached out and pushed him and Luo Zhan fell backward. His whole body jerked and immediately he opened his eyes. Luihan was shocked by his sudden convulsion, and after seeing that he was fine, he breathed a sigh of relief. He patted Luo Zhan and said, "How can you fall asleep like this? How tired are you?" Luo Zhan took a breath and sat up from the sofa. Luihan saw that he did not seem to be in a good state and said, "What? Where is your girlfriend?" "I let her go back first." Luihan was dumbfounded and said incredulously, "No way, I made so much delicious food. I just wanted to get to know your girlfriend. You actually let her go back? Why do I want to get to know her?" Luo Zhan sat up straight. "Maybe tomorrow she will not be my girlfriend. I don't think we are suitable. Emin, weren't you too fine in the morning? You even hugged each other and played basketball. I thought you were going to get a room or something." Then he seemed to have thought of something and said, "Could it be that you dumped her because she refused to be with you? Scumbag." Luo Zhan said, "When did I go to play basketball? Did you see it wrong?" "Damn, I don't know you. How could I see it wrong?" "You must have seen it wrong. I didn't play basketball today." Luo Zhan stood up and went directly to the bathroom. After coming out he shouted, "I'm starving. Let's eat." Luihan thought of this morning when Luo Zhan pretended not to know him and he pouted. After washing his hands they went to the table together and Luo Zhan ate happily. Luihan ate slowly and said, "Seriously, you can't play like this. Girls have to be pursued slowly. Who can stand it if you ask to get a room all at once? By the way, this girl should not be the same as the nightclub girl you had last time, right?" Luo Zhan ate and listened with a confused face. "Don't pretend to be stupid. I saw it twice. I don't know how many times I didn't see it." "Luihan, you must have. You saw it wrong." However, just when he was about to say it, Luo Zhan suddenly remembered. "Luo Ran, where are you going?" "Date." Thinking of Luo Ran, Luo Zhan snorted, looked at Luihan and said, "I know, the person you saw was not me. How is that possible? I'll recognize you even if you turn into ashes. Do you really think I'm blind? Or do you have a twin brother?" Luo Zhan was silent for a moment, then let out a long hiss and said with some embarrassment, "How should I say this? I didn't want to tell you, but since you asked, then I'll admit it." "What?" "I do have a twin brother. He just came back from London some time ago." Luo Zhan snorted and said with a look of disbelief, "Then why have you never mentioned it before?" "Why should I mention it? It's not a big deal anyway." Luo Zhan didn't care at all. He took a sip of the pickled cabbage soup and said, "He has his parents and I have mine. We don't have many opportunities to see each other all year round. Even Ming and Lao Er rarely see him, let alone you." Chapter 866. Luihan was worried that he would not be able to finish it. Unexpectedly, most of it went into Luo Zhan's mouth. He said he was here to eat and he really came to eat. After Luo Zhan was full, he helped clean up the dishes and did not say a word. After cleaning up and washing the dishes, when Luo Zhan was ready to go back, his phone rang. It was Li Xiqing. "Lao Er. Come to Palace 1. "Okay, but I have eaten." "If you want to eat, you don't have to wait for me." Luo Zhan was a little sleepy after eating and yawned. Suddenly, the voice on the other side suddenly changed and it was Ming's voice. He said, "You are familiar with Lu, right? Ask him to come with us." "What?" Luo Zhan was a little puzzled. But soon, there was a flash of white light in his mind, and Luo Zhan immediately understood and asked, "Is it the woman surnamed you back?" "Yes." All the causes and consequences had been connected, and Luo Zhan immediately knew what it meant. Glancing at Luihan, who was sitting on the side playing with his mobile phone, he said, "Oh, you can rest assured that Luihan does not like that woman." Luihan heard his name, turned his head and looked over, a little confused. However, Ming did not explain much and said, "Just come over." After that, he had hung up the phone. Luo Zhan was a little helpless, looked at Luihan and said what Ming said. "Well, anyway, I have nothing to do." Luihan stood up and said, "I'm going to change clothes." At 1 o'clock in the afternoon in the capital, Ming came back with a lot of things from Yu Lily, all of which seemed to be more meaningful. After returning to the hotel, Yu Lily just came back after eating with Su Qianxi. Seeing the pile of things that belonged to her, Yu Lily was a little surprised and felt very close. She took the phone, turned it on, and went to play with other things. Ming watched her quietly hide the notebook before looking at other things. His eyes were slightly deep and he took the lead to say, "Let's go back to Kingstown today." Lily heard that, slightly stunned, thinking that she had heard it wrong. She looked up and asked Ming, "What did you say?" "Go back to Kingstown and stay in the Shishan villa." Ming sat on the sofa and slowly unbuttoned his cufflinks. "You seem to be good at drawing. Why don't I arrange a job with comics for you?" There was a comic website under O Group, which was mainly a charging channel for wireless clients. Lily had already heard of the website's high potential. But to directly give him a position. Wasn't this the legendary backdoor entrant? Wait, how did he know that she was good at drawing? Lily subconsciously looked at the notebook that she had secretly hidden. Here, after her diary disappeared, it replaced it and became a new diary. It had always been by her side. Ming probably saw it. In addition to the text, there were also many illustrations. Many of them were human faces, and Ming was undoubtedly the one with the highest appearance rate. And Louis Han, second. Ming squinted at her and said, "You still like that Louis Han?" Lily didn't know what he meant by that. She looked at him anxiously. "What are you afraid of?" "I won't eat him. I don't really like him. In the past I especially liked this type of boy, but now I don't like him anymore." "Is that so?" Ming's voice was low and the meaning was unclear. Chapter 867. When Ming heard those 3 words, it was as if he had heard something funny. A pair of peach blossom eyes looked at her and his smile deepened. He gently took off his coat and his voice seemed to be careless. He said slowly, "If I understand it correctly, the so-called jealousy should be an irrational behavior of a person who is unhappy, angry, uneasy, or even angry when his lover faces another person of the opposite sex." Jealousy was jealousy. After being translated in this way, Lily suddenly felt that the word suddenly became lofty. He continued, "And you, do you think that you are my lover?" Lily was stunned when she heard what Ming had said. Obviously he was not. Lily originally wanted him to shut up, but she did not expect such a reply, and suddenly became embarrassed. She thought that he would be the passive one. However, Ming's rank was obviously much higher than he had imagined. Ming's eyes looked at her and smiled, slightly raised his eyebrows and slightly raised the corner of his mouth. "You are just my lover." After a pause he added, "There can be many lovers but there can only be one lover." Lily's heart was suffocated, and she felt a sharp pain. Lover, lover. It seemed that there was only a difference of one word, but the difference was like heaven and earth. In order to get, the person who paid money was a lover. In order to get, the person who paid sincerity was a lover. Lily never expected, but facing it like this, she still couldn't help but feel pain. What a knife. Oh he. Lily looked at Ming with an indifferent expression and shrugged. "I already knew it. It was just a joke. But you're so serious. I'll think you're hiding it, Mr. O." Ming's expression was obscure, and he said with a faint smile, "It's best to say it clearly so that you can stop thinking about something that doesn't belong to you." Lily's face was even more terrible. Ming acted as if he didn't see it, looked around and said, "Go pack up and go back to Kingstown in the afternoon." While speaking, Ming had already stood up and entered the bathroom. Lily looked at Ming's back and her lips were pressed into a line, and her face was slightly pale. Looking at the notebook in her hand, Lily sat on the bed and flipped through it. She had bought this book back when she was in Kingstown. Because it looked very beautiful, Lily bought it without much thought. Occasionally he would scribble on it. It was a very thick book. It was a beautiful steel plate with a thick hard paper cover. It was hard to tell how much paper was inside. On the last page a name card was drawn. Dr. Jean Baiha was the chief physician of obstetrics and gynecology at the First Hospital of Kingstown. At the bottom of the business card, Lily had clearly written a few words. "I'm sorry I couldn't protect you." Seeing these words, Lily felt a lump in her throat, but then she closed the book and stuffed it into the box on the side. Ming was in the bathroom, leaning against the glass cubicle with his phone in his hand. Looking at the business card taken on his mobile phone, Ming thought for a long time before he opened WeChat and sent it to Su Cheng. "Editor." Lily. Su Cheng immediately understood and replied, "Okay, check it right away." Chapter 868. Lily was a little surprised by Ming's thoughtfulness. He actually found the things for her. There was a wonderful feeling in her heart, which was quickly fermenting. Looking at the familiar things, Yu Lily began to pack her luggage. Ming walked slowly to the bed, picked up the computer on the side, and quickly typed on the keyboard. Yu Lily looked up at Ming, and her movements became slower and slower. After thinking for a long time, she said, "Didn't you buy Lida's company? Can you help me find my things back?" Ming glanced at her from the corner of his eyes. He turned his eyes back to the computer screen and said casually, "Didn't you say that you didn't use my computer? How did you know that I bought that company?" Yu Lily was slapped in the face and her face became hot. It was rare that Ming didn't take advantage of the situation. He looked at her red face and asked, "What things?" "The diary." Yu Lily looked at him and said hesitantly, "The blue diary is the one you read before, the diary that was taken away by Lida." Although she didn't know what they were going to do with it, that diary was very important to her. Thinking of the day that Ming smashed the diary on her wall full of photos, Yu Lily had an indescribable pain in her heart. He didn't finish reading it. If he finished reading it, he would definitely not be like that. Ming looked up at Yu Lily and said, "I found it." Yu Lily's eyes lit up. "Where?" "It's gone." Yu Lily was stunned and asked, "What do you mean by gone?" "I didn't find it. It was torn up by Lida's wife." Ming's people left several times, and then Ming let him see the technical loopholes of his company materialize and then be destroyed by Lida himself. In less than 3 days, the value and reputation of the whole company had plummeted. But no matter how much Lida begged for mercy and cried, he couldn't take out the diary. The life of this small company had come to an end. Hearing that, Yu Lily was disappointed, but at the same time she expected it. Yu Lily lowered her head and continued to pack things. There was a brand new box in the room which was just sent by the waiter. Yu Lily had bought quite a lot of things yesterday. When she packed them up, it was just enough to fill a box. While stuffing things into the bag, Yu Lily was still a little unwilling. She turned her head and asked, "That diary, where did you read it? Does it matter where I see it?" Ming asked. Yu Lily pursed her lips, looked down and shook her head. "It's not important. Anyway, it was already like this." Yu Lily's heart was slightly disappointed. She turned her head and continued to pack up. Ming raised his eyebrows. It seemed that there was more to the diary than met the eye. What a pity. But when Ming looked at Yu Lily, who was quietly packing her luggage, especially when he saw her folding her clothes, he felt inexplicably happy. In a place where Yu Lily couldn't see, he smiled slightly and lowered his eyes to continue his work. When they arrived in Connecticut, it was already 5 or 6 in the evening. Li Xiqing and Su Qianxi were about to go home but were stopped by Ming. Chapter 869. Old Friend? Yu Lily suddenly thought of Louis Han. Seeing Ming's ambiguous eyes, Yu Lily felt a little repulsed. This guy, is he going to use Louis Han to deal with me? What does he want to do? While bullying me, he is also going to hurt Louis Han. Yu Lily felt that Ming was despicable and shameless. When she met his intense gaze, Yu Lily pursed her lips and braced herself to say, "I don't have any old friends. You know that I don't have a good relationship with anyone in Kingstown." "Are you very popular in the capital?" Ming asked. Yu Lily was speechless, glanced at him, smiled and did not answer. Ming asked Li Xiqing to call Luo Zhan and then went to Palace 1. They got a private room together, eating and singing. After ordering, Su Qianxi dragged Yu Lily out to sing. After the food was served, Louis Han and Luo Zhan also arrived at the same time. While Li Xiqing and the others were eating, Louis Han and Luo Zhan began to sing while waiting for them to eat. Ming was the first to eat. Elegantly and slowly wiping his mouth, Ming walked to Louis Han calmly. Yu Lily saw his behavior and was inexplicably nervous. She stared at him for fear that he would suddenly punch Louis Han. Ming was also paying attention to Yu Lily at the same time. Naturally, he had seen all her reactions. With a cold smile, Ming sat not far from Louis Han. He said, "I heard that you have a project and are looking for investment?" Louis Han heard the words and looked over, quite surprised. "Yes, it's a mobile game. I know, I have heard about it. Your project is not bad. How about telling me the details?" Louis Han did not expect that Ming would be interested in the project of his small company. So, he specifically called him over to tell him about this project? However, O Group is such a big company. As the boss, Ming must be very busy. How could he have time to pay attention to such a small person? Louis Han knew that there must be something wrong, but as a small and medium-sized company that had just started, Louis Han naturally would not miss any opportunity. What's more, if he could cooperate with O Group, then his reputation would definitely be great. Invisibly, his company would certainly enter the vision of various companies. In this way, his future development would certainly be much more convenient. Undoubtedly, if he could really climb up the tree of O Group, it would be beneficial for Louis Han. Immediately, she gave O Ming a detailed explanation. Luo Zhan was no longer singing, and their voices were clearly heard by everyone. Yu Lily's heart skipped a beat. She suddenly understood why O Ming suddenly called Louis Han today. This was a demonstration to her and at the same time, a warning to her. For a company like Louis Han's, if O Ming didn't want it to exist, he could just say the word. O Ming had done Louis Han a favor on purpose in front of her. Naturally, he could destroy it at will. Yu Lily was not a fool. She put down her chopsticks and felt a little uneasy for the rest of the time. It was 2 hours later. Lu returned. Chapter 870. However, the furnishings and furniture in the villa had all been changed. The diamond-shaped sofa in ancient European style, the simple retro brown and yellow wallpaper, and the thick ancient European pattern carpet. Even the style and color of the interior lamps and chandeliers were different from before. It was strange. However, the villa was filled with the owner's wealth that exceeded that of ordinary people. Such decoration was too ordinary. If she didn't know that she had lived in this villa before, she would really think that she had walked into the lobby of a luxury hotel. It was not like O Ming's usual style. Yu Lily dragged her suitcase in and walked back to the master bedroom with ease. However, the mattress in the master bedroom had also been changed. The complex retro color, dark green and dark yellow intertwined, was strong ancient European style. Yu Lily hated this color, especially the color of the bed. Looking at it, she even lost the desire to sleep. Yu Lily heard footsteps behind her and she turned to look. O Ming walked over slowly and said, "You go to the next room to sleep first." The indifferent command made Yu Lily feel like she had been trampled under the foot of the dog. Next door was a guest room. The opposite was the second bedroom. O Ming actually let me sleep in the guest room? Yu Lily looked at the master bedroom and asked, "Is this where you sleep?" O Ming should not like this kind of pattern. In his words, it was old-fashioned and vulgar. When O Ming heard that, he glanced at Yu Lily and said, "Anyway, it is not yours." Yu Lily immediately understood. Since O Ming said so, naturally it could not be his own. So, there was someone else living here. Even the decoration of the living room and so on were done by that other person. But who could it be? O Ming had a lot of houses under his name, but only the villa in Xishan was used by him to raise a woman. Yu Lily had stayed in this canary's cage for 3 years. In that case, the other person must be a woman. Don't tell me, it's that Miss Shen, that fiancé? Yu Lily looked at him with a sneer and said, "Your private life is really rich." O Ming glanced at her and chuckled. "Why, are you jealous?" Yu Lily smiled and looked at O Ming with a pair of beautiful big eyes. She asked, "O Ming, what is our relationship?" O Ming put his hands in his trouser pockets and walked over. His smile didn't diminish. He raised his eyebrows and said, "Didn't I tell you earlier? You're my lover." Tsk, if I remember correctly, you just said today that this so-called jealousy is the irrational behavior of a person when their lover is facing another person of the opposite sex. Since they are in a relationship, why would I be jealous? Yu Lily's eyes were contemptuous, but her heart was stuffy and depressed. Lover? She still became his lover. Didn't we agree not to repeat the same mistakes? Why did everything change again unknowingly? She turned around and pulled her suitcase to the guest room next door. There was nothing in the empty room. Yu Lily's heart ached even more. How a man treated a woman could be seen from the details. Obviously, O Ming didn't plan for her and brought her back just like that. Chapter 871. In any case, Yu Lily couldn't resist the man's coercion. Resigned to her fate, she went to find the bed and put the quilt on it. The spare bedding was very clean, and it was obvious that someone always took care of it. This villa had not been empty in the past 4 years. Yu Lily was not very comfortable, but on second thought, it seemed that she was not qualified to interfere with how many lovers he had or whether he had a fiancé. She was just one of his lovers, that was all. Just after Yu Lily dragged the suitcase away, O Ming turned his head and took a deep look at the master bedroom, with the same unhappy look on his face. He picked up the phone and called the nanny, Nanny Zhou, who had already gotten off work. She quickly answered and shouted, "Master O. Didn't I ask you to change all the things in the room? Why haven't you changed them?" "This?" Nanny Zhou seemed to be a little nervous and said, "Miss Shen didn't let me change them." A few days ago the movers came and Miss Shen directly drove them away. I can't help it, Master O. O Ming's face became more and more sullen and he said, Who is she? She lived here for less than 2 months and she made my place like this. In the face of O Ming's obvious anger, Nanny Zhou didn't dare to say a word. O Ming's tone was not good and he shouted, Now, come here immediately and change them. Yes. Just after the phone was hung up, O Ming put the phone down and walked into the room. He walked into the cloakroom, which was full of beautiful women's clothes and a few of O Ming's clothes. With a black face, O Ming clenched his teeth and fists and he was furious. So dirty. He turned around and slammed the door. Just at the door of the room where Yu Lily was, O Ming's cell phone rang. O Ming was about to open the door, and after taking his hand back he picked up the phone. It was Su Qing. Master O, I have found out about Dr. Jean Baihe. O Ming stood at the door and soon turned away and asked with a cold face, How is it? Dr. Jean retired last year, and now she is an honorary professor in a medical school, so I found her now. About 4 years ago, Miss Yu once saw the obstetrics and gynecology department in her hand. I found Dr. Jin's file at that time and I have sent it to you. There is a document in WeChat. Okay, got it. With that he hung up the phone. He opened WeChat, downloaded the file and skimmed through it. This was Dr. Jin's casual note, and it had been saved into an electronic file. Yu Lily had seen Dr. Jin twice. The first time was to confirm her pregnancy, and the second time was to consult about the fetus. Due to the pregnant woman taking too many contraceptives, the possibility of the fetus being deformed or mentally retarded is higher. It is not recommended to keep the fetus. When O Ming saw these words he felt as if he had been struck by lightning. Malformed fetus? Retard? What does that mean? O Ming zoomed in on the document for fear that he might have read it wrong. However, after reading it over and over again, O Ming held his phone with mixed feelings. Due to taking too many birth control pills, the possibility of fetal malformation is very high. So what did it mean? Did Yu Lily abort the child because of this reason? Lily is a good girl. There must be a reason why she aborted the child. No mother would abort her own child. Chapter 872. Really? What excuse did you come up with this time? A few days ago, just as Yu Lily was about to tell him the real reason, he had said that out loud. Because he didn't believe there was any other reason at all. Thinking of what he had said at that time, O Ming wanted to punch himself. It turned out to be like this, it turned out to be like this. O Ming's eyes twinkled as he stared at the words on the phone. O Ming turned around and walked toward the room where Yu Lily was. When he opened the door, O Ming had already walked into the guest room that he had just arranged for Yu Lily and found that she had already made the bed. Seeing him come in, Yu Lily just glanced at him and then continued to make the bed for herself. O Ming's heart ached when he saw that. She was still like this. How could this be? Unknowingly she had caused such a big change in his heart, but she didn't know it herself. How could this be? O Ming stepped forward and grabbed her hand. Yu Lily was suddenly grabbed and she was shocked. Looking at O Ming in surprise, Yu Lily laughed and asked, What are you doing? But O Ming didn't answer. He pulled her and then held her in his arms. Yu Lily was slightly shocked and surprised. Yu Lily. O Ming suddenly shouted and held her with both hands. He was still holding the phone in his hand and his voice was a little hollow. Let me ask you in the beginning, why did you have an abortion? Yu Lily didn't expect that O Ming would suddenly think of this question. After a moment, her mind subconsciously thought of the 2 children. Her heart felt as if it had been grabbed by a big hand, and it was very uncomfortable. After a little struggle, Yu Lily's eyes became red, but she sneered and said, You won't believe me even if I tell you. Let me go. Hearing this, O Ming felt that he was simply wrong. How much sin did I have to commit to make my image in her heart fall to this? Yu Lily struggled, but O Ming held her tightly. He put his head into her neck, held her tightly and said, Yu Lily, don't move. Yu Lily was a little uneasy and asked nervously, What do you want to do? O Ming couldn't have done this for no reason. O Ming was silent for a moment, then said, Tell me, why did you kill the children? What? Yu Lily stopped struggling. Her eyes were hot and red and her throat was choked. O Ming's strength was very strong. He circled Yu Lily as if he wanted to embed her into his body. Yu Lily looked up and sneered. Are you regretting it? You regret bringing a woman like me back to Kingstown, right? It's okay, I'll return your money to you. Let me go, I'll return it to you later. O Ming's heart ached hysterically. It was that face again. Couldn't this woman try to tell him the truth for once? If Ming was still the Ming who didn't know the truth, he would have been enraged by her words. But now, all that was left in Ming's heart was heartache and self-blame. But at the same time he was angry at her attitude. He laughed angrily. "Let you die. I won't die in the future." Lily secretly breathed a sigh of relief. That's right. The Ming just now was too abnormal. Lily continued, "I still owe a lot of debt and I can only die after I pay it back. So, don't worry that you won't be able to collect your debt. It's just a matter of time." That. Chapter 873. I will work hard to make money and pay off all the debts I owe you first. As for the medical expenses, what if I don't give it to you? Ming suddenly said, straightened up and looked at her face. Ming's expression was unspeakably serious. Looking at her, his beautiful peach blossom eyes were even more beautiful at this moment. Lily, tell me the truth. Why did you abort the child? Ming looked at her with a pair of serious and deep eyes, which made Lily feel a little sad. She looked away and looked at the ground saying, "Don't ask. You won't believe it. Maybe, you will think that I made up an excuse to deceive you." It has always been like this. Since they met 4 years later, he had a deep doubt about every word she said. He had long since lost all trust in her. What was the use of asking this reason now? He couldn't believe it at all. But when Ming heard Lily's words, he felt that his heart was hit by something hard, and the pain was heartbreaking. Because the doctor said that the child was very likely to be deformed, so you aborted the child, right? Ming's hands squeezed her shoulders and a pair of eyes stared at her as if he wanted to see through her. Tell me honestly. Lily heard the words and looked at him incredulously. When Ming saw her expression, he already had the answer in his heart at that moment. It's true, yes, how can I believe such a reason? Could it be that the diary had something to do with this? The diary that Lily has been concerned about should be about this reason, right? If Lily told him herself or if Ming saw the contents of the diary, Ming might not believe it completely. However, Su Cheng was his man, and the results he found would certainly not be false. It turned out that Lily hid such a deep and big secret in her heart. Lily's face, which had been calm, suddenly shed tears. Seeing Ming's obviously very serious face, the little umbrella in her heart, which had been held for 4 years, collapsed in an instant after seeing his serious and compassionate expression. Lily's breath was short, and then she broke down and cried. Ming's heart felt as if it had been pierced by a steel needle. Blood spurted out, dripping beautifully. He pulled her into his arms and hugged her. His throat choked and his eyes were slightly hot. Holding her, he lowered his head and whispered, "Why didn't you tell me? Why did you keep it from me? Lily, you are too selfish." His voice was choked with sobs, and his big hand rubbed her short hair with more force. "The pregnancy, the possible malformation, and the abortion, why didn't you tell me a single thing? Why did you wait for me to find out, for me to ask you? Such a big secret. How did Lily manage to deal with all these incidents one after another? Moreover, he had done so many outrageous things. He was simply worse than a beast." Chapter 874. Second brother's wife is pregnant and it's twins. She shows off to me every day. When we have twins in the future, at least don't lose at the starting line. Ming's words seemed to be ringing in her ears. His words were full of longing and hope. Until now, Lily still remembered them clearly. Every time she thought about it, she felt that she had committed a heinous crime. Now, Ming found out what was going on, which made Lily feel even more guilty. She moved her hands up from his chest and wrapped them around his neck. She choked with guilt and said, "I'm sorry. I didn't mean it." Ming's heart ached when he heard that. He hugged her tightly and whispered, "Promise me that if anything happens in the future, you must tell me, okay? Tell me and we'll solve it together. Don't hide anything from me in the future, okay?" Only in this way could Ming not make mistakes. Only in this way could Ming be with her for a long time. You wanted to be with her. You really wanted to be with her. Lily's crying gradually stopped. After a hard yawn, she wiped her tears with her sleeves. She gently pushed him away. Her eyes were red and swollen from crying. She looked up at Ming. At that moment, Ming's eyes were also red. He looked at her and put his palm on her cheek. He gently wiped away her tears and whispered, "Promise me, okay?" Lily almost cried again. She wiped her tears and nodded. She wanted to say something, but she was already sobbing. Lily nodded and didn't say a word. Ming smiled and whispered, "Let's go. Don't live here. I'll take you to the apartment in Yanjing. What? Yu Lily looked up at him and asked. Ming looked at her and said, it's more comfortable there. Yu Lily looked at him and didn't ask any more questions. She nodded. When they arrived, Yu Lily found that it was one of the new buildings opened by the Li Group in recent years. It was a prime location and expensive. It was a luxury apartment on the 28th floor. Yu Lily watched Ming enter the password and walk in. When he opened the door, he clearly found something unusual. There were signs of people living everywhere. The living room was very clean, and there was a faint fragrance in the air. Ming dragged her suitcase to the bedroom. Yu Lily walked in and found that the ironed suit and shirt were all neatly folded. Everything was very neat and orderly. Every corner had an unparalleled taste and comfort. There was no doubt that Ming lived here. Live here? Yu Lily stood at the door of the bedroom and looked at Ming inside. Isn't this your room? Yes, we'll live together. Ming helped her open the box and took out the things inside one by one. We'll live together in the future. Yu Lily's eyes were hot and she looked at him. In the past, he and she had always lived in the villa in Xishan. Now that the villa in Xishan had changed a lot, he brought her here. Living together? Then what would be the relationship between them in the future? Or was it a lover? Was it the relationship between a kept woman and a kept woman? Yu Lily looked down. She wanted to ask, but she was afraid of thinking too much. She went forward and hung the rest of the clothes with Ming. Yu Lily's movements were much faster than Ming's. Obviously, Ming had never done such a thing. Chapter 875. Unpleasant sexual experience, sexual behavior, sexual injury. Ming subconsciously thought of the time in the bar in the capital when he made her look bad in public. Hey. Ming felt a headache and scratched his head. He was very annoyed. Is it because of that? After that incident, Yu Lily tried to commit suicide several times. Now, she is actually suffering from sexual apathy. Ming felt that it was not an exaggeration to be cut into pieces. What should I do now? Sexual apathy could be a big or small thing. If every day was like today, Ming knew that he would not be able to bear it. Turning off the computer, Ming went to the bed and looked down at Yu Lily, who had fallen asleep. After lying down with some annoyance, he held her and closed his eyes. The next day, as soon as Yu Lily opened her eyes, she saw Ming putting on his clothes. Ming looked at her while fastening his cufflinks and said, "Let's go to the hospital today." Yu Lily looked at him with some doubts and asked, "What are we going to do?" "I suspect that you have sexual apathy and you are too thin now. Go and get some tonic to take to nourish your body." While Ming was talking, he had put on a suit. The burgundy suit had clear lines and a nice style. The familiar color made Yu Lily sit up and shake her head. "No, I'm just in a bad mood recently. It should be fine in a few days." Ming glanced at her, not fully believing her. He looked at his watch and said, "Well, I have a shareholders meeting at 10 o'clock. I'll go first. Remember to eat breakfast." This way of getting along seemed to be the same as before. There was no change. Yu Lily felt warm and nodded. "Okay." Ming came over and kissed her gently on the face. Then he walked out. After Yu Lily washed up, she suddenly realized what Ming's words meant. Sexual apathy. Sexual apathy? What? Yu Lily suddenly realized and thought of her state last night. It seemed a little, but wasn't sexual apathy something that only very old people would have? After washing up, Yu Lily went out and picked up her mobile phone to search on Baidu. After reading the introduction, Yu Lily felt a little inexplicable. Isn't it normal to be in a bad mood and not want to have sex? How could he suspect me of sexual apathy? However, this couldn't go on. She was too useless now. Could she only rely on Ming for a lifetime? Yu Lily's computer had already been smashed. Now there was no computer around, so she had to take her mobile phone and find a job for herself. Suddenly he saw a comic book advertisement. After he clicked on it, he saw a huge recruitment notice for a comic book artist. Yu Lily saw it and clicked on it. At a glance, she saw a variety of comics displayed inside. The style was so ugly. Cartoonist recruitment, a promising future. Yu Lily clicked on it and found that many comics were not as good as hers. Moreover, this website was also a new website. When Yu Lily clicked on it, she was surprised to find that it turned out to be a new site under the O Group. Could it be that the comic book job that Ming said he would arrange for her was here? Yu Lily added the website editor's QQ, and it was quickly verified. Yu Lily, hello. Chapter 876. Cartoonist, These 3 words had absolutely nothing to do with her now. Yu Lily felt a little embarrassed and replied, I'm just interested in drawing, not a cartoonist. Sisai? Well, we have a scriptwriter here, but we are short of cartoonists at present. Can you show me your drawing style? Yuli, okay. Yu Lily found the book she drew, took a picture of it and sent it to her. Sisai, great. What's your major? Yuli, computer. Sisai, haven't you learned painting? Yuli, no, I'm just interested in it. Sisai, great. I'll give you a script. You draw first and I'll have a look. Yuli, is it an interview? Sisai, haha, no, I just want to see more of your drawing style. We now have a plan to train cartoonists. I think your drawing style is very beautiful and refined. You can give it a try. Our full-time cartoonists have a basic salary. Here is the welfare information. You can have a look. Yuli, okay. She clicked it and it was the welfare plan of this new website. Full-time cartoonists had a guaranteed basic salary of 3,000 yuan, and there was a share of sales which was 50% with the website. If they could reach the level of a star work or a blockbuster, the monthly income could be as high as 100,000 yuan. Yu Lily was stunned and couldn't believe it. After reading it, she swallowed silently and replied, what if they can't reach the level of a star work? Sisai, then you can only get a guaranteed basic salary of 3,000 yuan. 3,000 yuan. If she was asked to find a job, the salary might be higher, but O Ming would not let her find a job elsewhere. In this way she could only work in O Group, and the salary she got would be much higher than that of ordinary people. At that time she looked glorious on the surface, but those who flattered her on the surface actually looked down on her. Yu Lily knew it clearly. After thinking for a while she decided to give it a try. Yuli, I see. Let me see your script. Sisai, document. Yu Lily took the document, opened it and looked at it. He was immediately shocked by this plot. The plot was about a Chinese girl who returned to China as an exchange student. However, on the first day of school she was hit by a boy's basketball. The boy apologized to the female protagonist, and the female protagonist was gentle and generous. After accepting the boy's apology, she became the talk of the town. It turned out that this boy was the school hunk. From then on, many girls started to find trouble with her. But later on, the boy tried all sorts of ways to protect the girl. In the end, he fell in love with the girl and confessed to the female lead. After that, the female lead was targeted by the campus belle green tea bitch. After that, she was targeted in all sorts of ways and they fought to the death in school. What the hell? Are all manga plots like this now? Yu Lily's lips twitched and she typed, will the plot of such a comic be popular? Sisai, this is an old trick, but tricks have always won people's hearts. Try drawing it first. Yuli, okay. Yu Lily knew that her resistance was futile, but she had to try anyway. Yu Lily picked up the pen and began to draw seriously. After about an hour, Yu Lily drew a grid. Because there was no prototype, Yu Lily drew Su Qianxi. After taking a picture and sending it to Sisai, Sisai quickly replied. Chapter 877. Ha. Yu Lily laughed out loud. She didn't expect Su Qianxi to be so famous. Yuli, because there is no prototype, I drew her. Sisai, be careful that she asks you for copyright fees. Yuli, no, she is my friend. Sisai, aha. Don't brag like that. Who is Su Qianxi? She is the boss of the Li Group, a strong woman in the business world. Is she a friend of this person? Sitting in the office, Yi Chanshan pouted. Seeing this reply, Yu Lily knew that this person definitely didn't believe it. But this was the truth. Yu Lily felt a little embarrassed, touched her nose and also replied, haha, Sisai, don't use real people as prototypes. You should design your own characters. It doesn't matter. We can teach you. You can also make your own original cartoon. Yuli, original cartoon? Sisai, yes, it is your own idea, your own style and your own story. In this way the copyright fees will be very high. Yuli, okay, Sisai, you can use the digital tablet to draw. We will upload it directly to the internet. After the drawing is done, you can directly upload it. Yuli, okay, Sisai, your drawing style is very good, but you can't use real people as prototypes. Remember, even if you make a prototype, don't draw the face. It is too dangerous. Yuli, okay, Sisai, you can try it. If there is no problem, we can discuss the signing process of a full-time cartoonist. Yu Lily was shocked and replied, so soon? Sisai, you have great potential. Come and try. I can teach you after signing the contract. Yuli, well, let me think about it first. I don't have a digital tablet yet. I have to buy one. By the way, how much is a digital tablet? Sisai, you can buy one for more than 1,000 yuan to practice. When you get the royalties you can buy a better one. If you draw half to death and the royalties are not as expensive as a digital tablet, how miserable it will be. It was only after Yi Chanshan sent the message that she realized she had said something wrong. She added, you can use one that costs more than 1,000 now. Yuli, okay thank you. Yulili thought about it and checked the digital board on Taobao. But, she didn't even have 1,000 now. Yulili was really destitute. She took the phone and fell on the bed. She flopped on the bed. What to do? Just when she was still distressed, her phone suddenly rang. It was an unfamiliar number from the imperial capital. Who was it? Yulili answered the phone. Hello. A woman's voice came from the other side. She sneered and asked, are you Yulili? When Yulili heard his tone, she immediately became alarmed and asked, who are you? My name is Shin Manting, Ming's fiancé. I heard that you came to my villa last night. I want to see you. I am at the Starbucks on the first floor of Hingyuan Square. I will wait for you for half an hour at most. Please be sure to come. The arrogant tone made Yulili sneer. She was a little disdainful. She rolled her eyes and said, who do you think you are? What if I don't go? Chapter 878. Oh, is that so? Yulili raised her voice as if she was very interested and asked, what is it about? You'll know when you get there. I promise you won't be disappointed. Shin Manting chuckled and looked like she was going to win. His tone and attitude made it clear that he was certain that Yulili would come. I see. Yulili nodded and looked serious. Well, wait a minute. I'll be there soon. Okay. Shin Manting was very satisfied with Yulili's understanding and said, Ming likes obedient women. No wonder he likes you so much. After that, she hung up the phone. Yulili looked at the phone and sneered, naive. After saying that, he blacklisted Shin Manting's number. When did Ming like obedient women? Yulili tilted her head and thought for a moment. She suddenly felt that Shin Manting was a little sad. She shook her head and then continued to browse Taobao with her mobile phone. Shin Manting sat in Starbucks for half an hour, but she didn't see anyone like Yulili. Shin Manting furrowed her delicate eyebrows and felt a little displeased. She picked up the phone again and dialed Yulili's number, but it showed that she was not in the service area. What happened? No signal? Shin Manting dialed again, but the result was still the same. At this time, even if Shin Manting was stupid, she realized that Yulili had blacklisted her. Shin Manting was furious. She angrily hit the table and gritted her teeth. Many people turned to look at Zhang Xian. Shin Manting's face softened a little. She stood up and quickly walked out of the coffee shop. Yulili looked at the time and was in a good mood. She read comics on her mobile phone and quickly browsed the current popular comics rankings. She just read half of it and soon there was another call from Mystery. It was also an unknown number, but the place of origin was Kingstown. Even if she thought with her knees, she knew who the caller was. Although Yulili was in a good mood, she didn't want to answer it at all. Yulili rejected the call and directly blacklisted it. On the other side, Shin Manting was so angry that she gritted her teeth. This woman dared to play with me like this. TC. She started the car and drove to Ming's company. Ming was busy in the office after the meeting. Suddenly, someone from the secretary's office came to inform him, Master Miss Shin is here. Hearing this, Ming frowned and said, I'm busy. I won't see you. The secretary was a little embarrassed and continued, Miss Shin said that she has something very important to tell you. She seems to be a little angry. Why don't you see her? When Ming heard that, he smiled coldly. He looked up at her and asked, Who are you working for? Hearing this, the secretary nodded and retreated, closing the door behind her. When he walked out, he saw Shin Manting sitting in the living room, drinking the best coffee with her legs crossed. She was wearing a beige fur coat, her curly hair was tied up, and her exquisite makeup made her look charming and sexy. She was as beautiful as an Asian lady. However, such a woman had a bad temper. Chapter 879. Hearing Shin Manting's question, the secretary couldn't answer and was a little embarrassed. Suddenly she turned around and saw a figure. Feeling a great surprise, she shouted, Special Assistant Su. Su Qing came over here. Naturally, he had already heard what Shin Manting had just said. Seeing Shin Manting's obviously unhappy expression, he said calmly, Master O has recently been following up an overseas investment case, which is worth up to 50 billion yuan. If Miss Shen has nothing to do, please don't disturb Master O easily. Shen Manting listened with a face full of suspicion. She looked at Su Cheng and asked, "Is what you said true? Is it an overseas investment case?" Su Cheng nodded and said calmly, "Of course. Why would I lie to you?" Shen Manting snorted coldly and uncrossed her legs. She then picked up her handbag and walked out of the room. Seeing Shen Manting's movement, Su Cheng looked at the secretary with a sullen face and said coldly, "Why don't you see Miss Shen off?" The secretary immediately followed and said, "Miss Shen, this way please." Seeing Su Cheng's attitude, Shen Manting felt very uncomfortable and immediately changed her face. Turning around, Shen Manting stared at Su Cheng and said, "Special Assistant Su, you'd better pray that I don't find out that you are lying to me. Otherwise, I have plenty of ways to deal with you. Don't forget I am your future wife." When Su Cheng heard the words, he nodded slightly with a smile and said, "Of course not." Although he said so, there was no respect or fear on his face. "I'm just a worker. How can I deceive the future proprietress? Master O is really busy. If you don't believe it, Miss Shen can go in and have a look and question Master O face to face, lest he says that I don't respect the future wife of the president. I'm so wronged." Shen Manting's voice paused and she was angry. Go in and have a look? Confront O Ming face to face? How could it be possible? Who didn't know that O Ming had a bad temper and was impatient with everyone? Su Cheng actually asked her to confront such a person. Wasn't it obvious that he was ridiculing her and laughing at her? Shen Manting stared at Su Cheng for a long time before she stamped her feet and turned to the elevator over there. Su Cheng watched Shen Manting walk away, and the expression on his face became more and more indifferent. With a cold face, he looked at the secretary who had just returned and said, "Are you new here?" The beautiful secretary shrank back a little and nodded. "Come in, let's have a meeting." As soon as Su Cheng entered, all the people in the secretarial office stood up and shouted, "Hello, Mr. Su." Su Cheng nodded and said, "Don't you know what kind of person is coming? Shen Manting, don't send a newcomer next time. In short, it's not urgent. Master O is busy. If he can't handle it, he can come to me." The people in the secretarial office looked at each other, nodded, and said in unison, "Yes." Su Cheng walked out and entered the president's office. After knocking twice on the door, Su Cheng signaled that he was coming in. O Ming stopped what he was doing and looked at him with his arms crossed. "Just now Miss Shen came. She didn't look like she came with good intentions, so I sent her away. I think she's going to inquire about Miss Yu next." When O Ming heard that, he chuckled and shook his head slowly. "She might have already been found. Pay attention to that woman's movements. If anything goes wrong, report it to me immediately." Chapter 880. O Ming, who had intended to continue working, stopped and looked up at Su Cheng. Su Cheng's back was stiff, and for a moment he was frozen in place. The atmosphere was awkward. O Ming looked at him for a few seconds and said slowly, "Shen Manting." Su Cheng got the answer and immediately understood. He nodded and said, "Got it, Master O. I don't need you to keep an eye on my own woman." O Ming lowered his head to work and said casually. Su Cheng felt even more uncomfortable. He straightened his back and nodded. "Okay, Master O, then I'll go first." "Okay." O Ming did not look up. Su Cheng immediately turned around and went out as if he had been pardoned. However, even before he went out of the door, he heard O Ming's voice coming from behind. "Oh yes." Su Cheng froze on the spot like a wooden stick, not daring to move. O Ming continued, "Help me find a position in Eurasian Comics. First, an editorial assistant. Give it to you." Su Cheng nodded with his back to O Ming and said, "Okay, Master O." "Go." Su Cheng really did not dare to stay. He opened the door and immediately went out. After closing the door of the office, Su Cheng came out and quietly breathed a sigh of relief. Facing the eyes from the secretary's office, Su Cheng pretended to be calm and stepped out. But before he reached the elevator, his cell phone rang. It was O Ming. Su Cheng's heart was immediately alarmed. He picked up the phone and immediately shouted, "Master O." "Okay." O Ming's voice came and said, "Don't make it too obvious. You let you think that she earned the position by herself. This is a small matter. Solve it as soon as possible." After that, O Ming directly hung up the phone. Without the slightest mercy, Su Cheng stood in the same place. It was not until the elevator arrived that he reacted and sighed. Walking into the elevator, Su Cheng made a phone call to Eurasian Comics. Yu Lily was browsing the web, and suddenly a message popped up on her mobile phone. "Eurasian Comics is recruiting." "Recruiting?" After Yu Lily clicked on it, she quickly finished reading it. Eurasian Comics is recruiting. They were recruiting editors, and their main job was to solicit contributions from cartoonists. They were equivalent to the agents of celebrities. The salary was very impressive. Yu Lily looked at the salary introduction on it and felt excited. But without a computer, in such a large apartment there should be a room similar to a study, right? She exhaled and walked out of the room. After walking around, he realized that this apartment was really not just big. There were 4 or 5 empty guest rooms. There was also a gym and a small izakaya. It took Yu Lily more than 10 minutes to find the study. In the study, there were all kinds of certificates of honor and all kinds of treasures. There was a limited edition sports car model, antiques that were obviously old, calligraphy and paintings. There were shelves on all 4 walls of the study. On the wall facing the door there was a large display cabinet, and on the left and right were bookshelves. The bookshelves were crammed with 2 walls full of books. Famous works, ancient and modern, Chinese and foreign, as well as rows and rows of handwritten notes. It was the first time that Yu Lily had seen such a spectacular scene. It turned out that Ming was a person who liked to collect books. I really couldn't see it. Yu Lily picked up a book full of German and flipped through 2 pages. There were rows of notes on it. Chapter 881. Ming's handwriting was beautiful, vigorous, and powerful. Among these 2 pages full of German, Ming's Chinese was particularly outstanding. Yu Lily's eyes were full of infatuation and admiration. Although she couldn't understand what was written on it, she still turned a few more pages and looked at Ming's notes. After he finished reading, he put the book back and casually picked up another one. This time she finally understood some of it because it was in Japanese. Yu Lily shook her head and thought of the time when they lived together in Shishan. But Ming was not often in the Shishan villa. Thinking about it, he either went to another woman's place or came back to this apartment. It was good to come back here. The environment here was so good. Although it was only an apartment, the environment and decoration here were much better than the Shishan villa. Especially compared with the current Shishan villa. No wonder Ming said it was more comfortable here. It was more than comfortable. Even the mood was very different. In the middle of the study, in front of the high display table, there was a large white desk. In the middle of the desk there was a computer with a large screen. Next to the computer were thick notebooks and various file racks. Yu Lily glanced at the computer and was not in a hurry to turn it on. Instead she called Ming first. Ming was busy. He glanced at his cell phone and saw the words Yu Lily, and his mood suddenly improved. He picked up the phone and turned on the speaker. Yu Lily's voice quickly came over and said, "Hello." "Yeah. Ming, can I use your computer? I am in your study now." Ming heard that, chuckled and slightly teased, "You actually know how to say hello. Go ahead, there is no password." He seems to be in a good mood. Hearing this smiling voice, even Yu Lily's mood improved. She nodded and said, "Okay. Then I will hang up." "Well, if you are bored at home you can go out for a walk. There is a card in the drawer of the study. It is the same password." "There is a card in the drawer of the study? Is this specially left for me?" Yu Lily was in a better mood and nodded. "Okay, bye." Ming let go of the phone. After Yu Lily hung up the phone, he looked at the documents on the table and his mood became better. The corners of his lips rose unconsciously, and just as he lowered his head, his phone rang again. It was Special Assistant Sue. He picked up the phone and spoke first. "Special Assistant Sue." Su Cheng's whole body quivered. Ming actually spoke first. "Oh my God, so scary. Young Master I have arranged everything. Everything is ready now, and we are just waiting for Miss Yu to submit her resume." "Submit a resume?" Ming's voice rose slightly, and his tone was a little strange. "Submit what? Resume?" Su Cheng coughed lightly and said awkwardly, Didn't you say to make Miss Yu feel like she earned it herself, so She briefly explained the arrangements to Ming. Ming raised his eyebrows slightly, nodded and said, "It sounds good, but does it have to be so complicated?" "Su Cheng, forget it. What's done is done. Let's beat them at their own game." Su Cheng. "Yes." After Yu Lily hung up the phone, the corners of her mouth rose unconsciously. She turned on the computer and opened the drawer while the computer was on. Chapter 882. It was the one she used before and the card number was exactly the same. Yu Lily picked up the card and looked at it. On the handwriting column of the card, the words, "OU," were clearly written in elegant handwriting. Ming Yu Lily. So it was OU. This was written by herself before and it was still there. Did Oh Ming keep it all the time? The computer rang and it turned on much faster than she thought. After opening the social media tool, Yu Lily sent the website on the phone to the computer, then opened Word and began to edit the resume. Yu Lily majored in computer science at university, but she dropped out before graduating and went to Yunnan. Later, she wandered in Yunnan without success, so she went to the capital. Who would have thought that he would end up back in Kingstown? After thinking about it, Yu Lily simply wrote a self-introduction and a mental monologue. After checking it again and again, she sent it over. Su Cheng was still thinking that Yu Lily would look down on the small salary, so she didn't even want to send her resume now. In case she couldn't complete the task of Oh Ming, then she would definitely be punished. But just as he was worrying about it, his phone suddenly rang. Someone sent a resume. This recruitment announcement was only open for an hour. After Yu Lily clicked on the push, it only lasted for 10 minutes, and then the advertisement window was closed. Because it was an internal unspoken rule, Su Cheng directly left his email address. He received 4 or 5 emails in succession, but none of them were from Yu Lily. Just when Su Cheng almost gave up and planned to find another way, he received an email. The sender name was definitely special to Su Cheng. Yu Lily's resume. After a cursory glance, Su Cheng saw the resume and surprisingly had a good impression of it. The words were appropriate and full of sincerity. But it was too honest and she actually wrote all her education and experience. However, this Yu Lily had far exceeded Su Cheng's expectations. Originally, he thought that a woman like Yu Lily should be just a vase, but the literary talent of her resume was very different from what he had thought. After thinking about the words, Su Cheng quickly replied to the document. What he meant was that he thought Yu Lily was very suitable and hoped that she could come for an interview at 10 o'clock the next morning. He also briefly talked about the salary and job description. After confirming that there were no problems, Su Cheng sent it out. As soon as he sent it out, he heaved a sigh of relief. What a joke. The lady opposite him was very likely to be the future boss's wife. After being entangled with the big boss for so many years, Oh Ming still couldn't forget her. Compared to her, what was that Miss Shen? The reply from Eurasian Comics was much faster than Yu Lily had imagined. Yu Lily opened the email expectantly and was so happy that she almost jumped up. He actually let her go for an interview. This is great. Full of excitement, Yu Lily stood up from the chair and skipped back into the room. What should I wear for the interview tomorrow? The interviewee was only an editor's assistant. The salary during the probation period was only $3,000. The salary after becoming a regular employee was not announced, but it would definitely not be much higher. In this line, unless one became a regular editor, they could rely on commissions to make a living. Otherwise, they would only have a fixed salary. However, when Yu Lily opened the wardrobe, she found that all the clothes were branded. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.